What if Bella fell for the new doctor while treating his family? Bella's POV. My name is Isabella Swan. I have lived in Forks, Washington for my entire life. My mother left my dad almost 2 months after I was born. She never wanted a baby, but had me because my father wouldn't let her have an abortion. The case was even taken to court. Sue married my dad when I was 18. She had always been around to help with me, but they didn't get together until then. I loved her like if she were my mother. I live in a 3-bedroom house that my grandma had left me in her will. It was big for me. I loved it, but it has never felt like home. But I preferred being alone in a huge house or living with Sue and my dad Charlie. They were still pretty young and were very physical and loud. I am now 24 years old, and I am the only psychologist in Forks. I have few patients, but I make a living. We were getting a new doctor since the current doctor was too old to see 3 feet in front of him. He had 6 kids who all had appointments with me in the first week that they were to arrive. Charlie's POV. Alice, Jasper, Rosalie, Emmett, Esme, and Edward had begun to act out a lot in school. They started fights, though never used their power. The talk back to teachers. They started food fights. They stopped doing homework and started skipping school most days. It was hard keeping track of 6 vampires. I had to go to work so people wouldn't get suspicious. We had found that by feeding on animals we were pretty much human if we so chose it. We could turn the vampire attributes on and off. Thought we were always fast, our senses were always heightened, but our skin could become normal so we could be out in the sun. By drinking animal blood we were able to suppress the vampire in us. I finally decided to get them all a psychologist, but I was a little late. Someone had seen Jasper tagging at vampire speed. We had to leave and fast. I decided to move us to Forks, Washington, where I knew that a new psychologist had begun her practice. Bella's POV. Saturday. Finally now all I had was the appointment with my 6 new patients and their father. Then until Monday. When my secretary informed me that they were here I told her to lead them in. 7 gorgeous people walked in. Wow. Hello, I am Dr. Isabella Swan, but please call me Bella, I said as I motioned for them to come in. Hello, I am Dr. Carlisle Cullen. Call me Carlisle. These are my children, Edward and Alice Cullen, Emmett and Esme McCarty Cullen, and Jasper and Rosalie Hale Cullen. He pointed to each one as he spoke. They all looked at me, but none spoke. Say hello, he murmured. No, Edward and Esme said at the same time. Make us, Emmett and Rosalie added. Don't want to, Jasper and Alice finished off. I noticed as each two spoke they stepped closer to each other. He huffed. I'm sorry for their behavior. I taught them better. But as you can see they have no respect anymore. That is why I brought them here. I can't do this alone anymore. They need professional help. I nodded in understanding. How about we take a seat? I said as I moved around my desk to my chair. They all sat themselves in the chairs and the sofa. How about you explain to me why they all have different last names, and why your children seem to be paired off? I said. Well, none of them are my children. I adopted them all. Alice and Edward were my sister's kids. Rosalie and Jasper came from a group home that wouldn't let them be together after they lost their parents. Esme and Emmett came to the hospital I used to work at. Their parents beat them so I took them in. Edward and Esme got together. Then Rose and Emmett. Then last but not least Alice and Jasper got together. We were all fine, but then they all started acting out. Carlisle said, a pained look in his eyes. Charlie's POV. I felt horrible lying about how we had become a family, but I had incorporated something from their human lives into each of their stories. They had all been turned at really young ages. I had to take them under my wings. Bella's POV. Wow, he adopted all these kids. How about your wife? I asked as I took note on each of their backgrounds. I don't have one, he responded sadly. Wow, he raised these kids in his own, like my dad had raised me. But he had had Sue, and it had just been me. Alright, and how old are they and what grade are they in? I said as I looked at the kids. They looked mad, annoyed, bored, or a combination. Well, Edward, Rose, and Alice are 17, and are juniors. Emmett, Jasper, and Esme are 18, and they are seniors. He answered calmly. Okay, now I was thinking of having a session with each 1 day a week, 1 per day of the week. Now you are here for your children. But have you considered talking to someone yourself? I asked since most of the time parents also needed help. I hadn't thought about it. Would that help them? He asked, and right there I realized he needed the help too. No, but it would help you, I responding knowing that I couldn't lie and couldn't pressure him into it. I think I would like to have a few sessions myself, he said as he looked over at his kids who were now staring at him. You want to shrink us because we're acting out and all of a sudden you care about making yourself better for us? Edward said, almost yelled. Dude, that would require taking time off work. Emmett added. Not to mention giving a damn, Jasper said. The girls stayed quiet. but I could see in their eyes that they agreed with their partners and siblings. Okay, for starters, we will have Edward come in on Monday, Emmett on Tuesday, Jasper on Wednesday, Esme on Thursday, Alice on Friday, then Rose on Saturday, then Carlisle if you could come in the following Monday. The Tuesday after your appointment, I would like all of you to come in, so we can make a schedule for regular visits. Carlisle nodded. The kids didn't care. Is 4 to 5 all right with everyone? I asked, looking at my calendar. Again, Carlisle nodded. All right then, I guess that is all for today. But here is my card. I gave each person a card. If you feel like talking, call me. I am on call 24/7 for my patients. The kids looked surprised. Carlisle looked thankful. They all left. I took a deep breath. Lee, can you come in here, please? I called out. What do you need, Bella? She asked with a pen and pad in hand. I told her the appointments that had to be made. She wrote everything down as I packed up. Once she entered everything into the computer, we locked up and walked out to our cars. We said our goodbyes and left. Bella's Pav. My name is Isabella Swan. I have lived in Forks, Washington for my entire life. My mother left my dad almost 2 months after I was born. She never wanted a baby, but had me because my father wouldn't let her have an abortion. Sue married my dad when I was 18. She had always been around to help with me, but they didn't get together until then. I loved her like if she were my mother. I live in a 3-bedroom house that my grandma had left me in her will. It was big for me. I loved it, but it has never felt like home. But I preferred being alone in a huge house or living with Sue and my dad Charlie. They were still pretty young and were very physical and loud. I am now 24 years old, and I am the only psychologist in Forks. I have few patients, but I make a living. We were getting a new doctor since the current doctor was too old to see 3 feet in front of him. He had 6 kids who all had appointments with me in the first week that they were to arrive. Charlie's Pav, Alice, Jasper, Rosalie, Emmett, Esme, and Edward had begun to act out a lot in school. They started fights, though never used their power. The talk back to teachers. They started food fights. They stopped doing homework and started skipping school most days. It was hard keeping track of 6 vampires. I had to go to work so people wouldn't get suspicious. We had found that by feeding on animals we were pretty much human if we so chose it. We could turn the vampire attributes on and off. Thought we were always fast, our senses were always heightened. But our skin could become normal so we could be out in the sun. By drinking animal blood we were able to suppress the vampire in us. I finally decided to get them all a psychologist. But I was a little late. Someone had seen Jasper tagging at vampire speed. We had to leave and fast. I decided to move us to Forks, Washington, where I knew that a new psychologist had begun her practice. Bella's Pav. Saturday. Finally, now all I had was the appointment with my 6 new patients and their father. Then until Monday. When my secretary informed me that they were here, I told her to lead them in. 7 gorgeous people walked in. Wow. Hello, I am Dr. Isabella Swan, but please call me Bella, I said as I motioned for them to come in. Hello, I am Dr. Carlisle Cullen. Call me Carlisle. These are my children, Edward and Alice Cullen, Emmett and Esme McCarty Cullen, and Jasper and Rosalie Hale Cullen. He pointed to each one as he spoke. They all looked at me, but none spoke. Say hello, he murmured. No, Edward and Esme said at the same time. Make us, Emmett and Rosalie added. Don't want to, Jasper and Alice finished off. I noticed as each 2 spoke they stepped closer to each other. He huffed. I'm sorry for their behavior. I taught them better. But as you can see, they have no respect anymore. That is why I brought them here. I can't do this alone anymore. They need professional help. I nodded in understanding. How about we take a seat? I said as I moved around to my desk to my chair. They all sat themselves in the chairs and the sofa. How about you explain to me why they all have different last names, and why your children seem to be paired off? I said. Well, none of them are my children. I adopted them all. Alice and Edward were my sister's kids. Rosalie and Jasper came from a group home that wouldn't let them be together after they lost their parents. Esme and Emmett came to the hospital I used to work at. Their parents beat them, so I took them in. Edward and Esme got together. Then Rose and Emmett. Then last but not least, Alice and Jasper got together. We were all fine, but then they all started acting out. Carlisle said, a pained look in his eyes. Charlie's Pav. I felt horrible lying about how we had become a family, but I had incorporated something from their human lives into each of their stories. They had all been turned at really young ages. I had to take them under my wings. Bella's Pav. Wow, he adopted all these kids. How about your wife? I asked as I took note on each of their backgrounds. I don't have one, he responded sadly. Wow, he raised these kids in his own, like my dad had raised me. But he had had Sue, and it had just been me. Alright, and how old are they and what grade are they in? I said as I looked at the kids. They looked mad, annoyed, bored, or a combination. Well, Edward, Rose, and Alice are 17 and are juniors. Emmett, Jasper, and Esma are 18 and they are seniors. He answered calmly. Okay, now I was thinking of having a session with each 1 day a week, one per day of the week. Now you are here for your children. But have you considered talking to someone yourself? I asked since most of the time parents also needed help. I hadn't thought about it. Would that help them? He asked, and right there I realized he needed the help too. No, but it would help you, I responding knowing that I couldn't lie and couldn't pressure him into it. I think I would like to have a few sessions myself, he said as he looked over at his kids who were now staring at him. You want to shrink us because we're acting out and all of a sudden you care about making yourself better for us? Edward said, almost yelled. Dude, that would require taking time off work. Emmett added. Not to mention giving a damn, Jasper said. The girls stayed quiet, but I could see in their eyes that they agreed with their partners and siblings. Okay, for starters we will have Edward come in on Monday, Emmett on Tuesday, Jasper on Wednesday, Esma on Thursday, Alice on Friday, then Rose on Saturday, then Carlisle if you could come in the following Monday. The Tuesday after your appointment I would like all of you to come in, so we can make a schedule for regular visits. Carlisle nodded, the kids didn't care. Is 4 to 5 alright with everyone? I asked looking at my calendar. Again, Carlisle nodded. Alright then I guess that is all for today. But here is my card. I gave each person a card. If you feel like talking call me. I am on call 24/7 for my patients. The kids looked surprised, Carlisle looked thankful. They all left. I took a deep breath. Lee, can you come in here please? I called out. What do you need, Bella? She asked with a pen and pad in hand. I told her the appointments that had to be made. She wrote everything down as I packed up. Once she entered everything into the computer we locked up and walked out to our cars. We said our goodbyes and left. Chapter 2. Monday 1 Edward, Charlie's Pav. Today Edward was going to see Bella. I really hope she can help out 6 adolescent vampires and their father. Bella's Pav. The day had been going very well. It was 3:30 and I had just finished talking with my last patient who only had half-hour sessions now. I knew Edward should be here soon. So I went into my office and got out the file I had begun for him. Lee called on the intercom telling me Edward was here, 10 minutes after 4. She showed him into the room. Hello Edward, he just did the head nod thing most guys do. Why are you late? He shrugged. Were you thinking of ditching? Again he shrugged. Okay, how about you start by telling me what you like? I asked hoping he would at least talk a little bit. I like the piano, he murmured. Really? What do you like to play? I asked setting my file and pen down. He looked at me for a second before talking again. Beethoven, Debussy, classics. What do you feel when you play? I asked knowing that it was a very personal question. He shrugged and looked at the clock. I sighed. Edward, do you like started fights? He shook his head. Do you like talking back to teachers and getting detentions? Again he shook his head. Do you like starting food fights? Again he shrugged. Then why do you do it? Because it is the only way he will pay attention, he said in barely a whisper. He who, Edward? I asked gently. Carlisle. He is always at work. Then when he gets home, he just doesn't care. If I do bad things, he at least tries to talk to me. He at least listens to me play. He was ranting. Ranting was good. No one is home when we get there after school. Usually he is gone before we leave. When he have family time he is still on call. So he more than likely has to leave early. How does that make you feel? And don't get angry at me for asking that or ask me what I think you feel like. I want you to close your eyes and tell me what you feel inside of you when you think about that. I said a little forcefully. He closed his eyes and complied. I feel angry, betrayed, abandoned, forgotten, unimportant, worthless, pissed off, discarded. He opened his eyes and looked at the clock. It's 5. I know it's 5. But you owe me 10 minutes. You were late. Thank you for telling me this. Would you like to retake the topic during the group session next Tuesday? He looked at me. If I say no, then we don't. I answered. I guess it would be okay, he said. I nodded then stood up. Come on, follow me. I took him through the doors to the right of my desk. I had instruments, painting materials, and all kinds of relaxing activities in this room. I had exercise material and punching bags along with some gloves and protective gear. I walked over to the piano and told him to sit. He looked confused but did it. You said Carlisle won't listen to you play unless you do bad things. He nodded. Well, I'll listen anytime. For now, please play something that describes your feelings. I will listen. He started playing after a minute. It was horribly wonderful. I knew I was crying. Sorry. I never thought about him not listening because I was horrible. He sounded heartbroken. Edward, I'm crying because you are a wonderful pianist. I can feel your hurt and your pain. That was very beautiful, Edward, I said as I giggled slightly, wiping away my tears. Then he smiled or smirked. It was a huge ear-to-ear smirk. Remember, if you need to talk, I'm a call away, he nodded. Goodbye, Dr. Bella, he said as he walked out. I smiled and welcomed my next patient. By 7:30 Lee and I were out of the office. On my way to my Charlie's, my cell phone rang, but it was my work ringtone. Dr. Isabella Swan speaking. I answered. Bella, it's Carlisle. How can I help you, Carlisle? Well, did everything go okay with Edward? Yes, everything went very well. Is he okay? I think so. It's just that when he got back he went straight to the piano and hasn't stopped playing. Oh no, he wanted Carlisle to hear what I had. He wanted Carlisle to know. What's your address? He gave it to me along with directions. I'll be there in a few. I hung up and called my dad, telling him to start without me because I had to go to work. He understood and said he would see me tomorrow. When I got to the Cullen household or mansion, really, I found Emmett waiting outside. Hello, Emmett, I said as I extended my hand to shake his. He looked at my hand before opening the door and motioning for me to go in. This was going to be difficult. I followed the music and found Carlisle sitting in a couch and Esme sitting next to Edward on the piano bench. Edward, I said as I approached him. I motioned for Carlisle to leave along with Esme. They both looked resistant. I need doctor-patient confidentiality, I stated. They left. Edward, you need to stop playing now. He shook his head. Edward, this won't help. He froze. Why not? He sounded angry. Because Edward, he had no idea. He is worried that something is making you do this, but has no idea. Please, Edward, continue your life as you have. During the Tuesday group session I promised to bring it up. He looked down at his lap. I sniffled and I saw the tears. Author's note. My vampires cry, get over it. I pulled him into a hug. He clung to me and buried his face in my neck. I tried soothing him, but it wasn't working. I sat him on the piano bench and sat next to him. I pulled him back into the hug, this time only with only one arm, but both of his were around me as he cried his heart out. I began playing a soft lullaby with my free hand. After about half an hour he calmed down. I made sure he was okay. Then I left. Charlie's Pav. Why is my son crying? What is going on through his mind? How do I help him? Chapter 3. Tuesday 1 Emmett. Charlie's Pav. Emmett was going to see Bella today. After what happened with Edward, the first had no idea what to expect. Edward's outlet had always been the piano. Emmett's is fighting. Bella's Pav. Lee saw how tired I was when I came into the office at 8 a.m. I had gotten home at around 1 a.m. Then I had to shower and do laundry. I had slept about 3 hours. She gave me some black coffee before I could even ask. I thanked her and began writing my notes in Edward's file. I took out the Cullen group session file and made a note of what Edward wanted to talk about. Talk about giving attention to his children. Working Monday through Friday only. Try not to be on call so much. Listen to his children's pain. I took care of all my patients and took a nap during lunch. At 3:45 I began waiting for Emmett. I took out his file but left it on my desk with the pad and pen. These kids wouldn't open up while I was taking notes. At 4:05 Lee let him in. Hello, Emmett. Like his brother, he just did the head nod. Alright. So how about we start off by you telling me what you like to do? He looked at me. Why aren't you writing down that I didn't say hello? I don't write anything down during a session unless you ask me to. I rather talk to you, and I rather you talk to me, not my hair, while I take notes on what we talk about. At the end of our session I'll write down a few key points, so I remember what we talked about, and that's it. I responded, suppressing a giggle. So are you going to shrink me? He asked with a scowl. I'm not a shrink, I'm a psychologist. My job is to talk to you and try to help you work out whatever is bothering you. I answered. He nodded. I like wrestling. Do you like fighting? I asked, surprised. No, he murmured. Can you tell me why you like fighting? I asked. I feel in control. I'm strong, you know. And when I fight, no one can take anything away unless I let them. I'm in control of my life. People see me. They may not necessarily care about me, but they see me. He said, looking straight at me. Why do you keep repeating that? People see you. Can you explain that thought to me? I asked gently, already knowing where this was going. At home I'm just another son. I'm not Emmett. He whispered. In street fights I'm a legend. Street fights? Emmett, you fight in the streets? This was not good. Not good at all. He looked down finally. I'm not proud of it. But yeah. So the fighting in school and talking back is just the tip of it? I continued. I guess I mean I don't go out every night or anything, but when I'm tired of being ignored I go out to the streets. Rosie doesn't even know. Please don't tell them. He said, looking back up at me. Emmett, like I told Edward, what we talk about stays between us. If you want to talk about something during the group session we can, but you have to ask to talk about it. I responded immediately. He nodded. You said when you get tired of being ignored. What do you mean? Well, Edward is the piano genius, Alice is the shopaholic, Jasper is kind of emo, Esme is all peace and love crap, and Rose is just plain beautiful. Plus she is great at fixing cars. Yet I'm just the strong son. I'm nothing special. Plus whenever Carlisle is around it's only to ground us or yell at us for stuff we do at school. Or when we break stuff. Or don't tell him we're going somewhere. But really how can we let him know or ask permission to go somewhere when he is never around? I mean I get it. You know he has no wife, and really what girl would want a guy with 6 adopted teenaged kids? But maybe if we had a mom he would be home more. Or we could talk to her about this. And she could remind him that he has a family who needs him. Emmett rambled on for the rest of the hour. Emmett, thanks for sharing this with me. I have a few things I want to talk about. First, is there anything that you want us to talk about during the group session? I asked. He looked down at his shoes for a few minutes thinking, can we talk about what I said about a wife? I mean I kind of want to know if he is not looking for anyone, because he thinks we don't want a mom, or if he is gay or something. Because he has never even had a girlfriend from what I know. I giggled slightly, of course, but you will ask him if he has non-regular preference in gender. He nodded. Okay, second, promise me that you will not go back to a street fight tonight or any other night through the night before the group session. After the group session, if you feel like fighting, then you call me. During any of these nights, you call me if you feel like fighting, okay? Okay, but why? He looked so confused. Follow me. I led him over to the room where I had taken Edward. You can use the equipment here to let out your frustration. He looked at the boxing gear and punching bags and grinned. Okay, I'll call if I feel like I need to fight, he responded. Goodbye, Emmett, I said as I led him to the door. Goodbye, Dr. Bella, he said as he closed the door behind him. Charlie's Pav. Emmett came back looking more relaxed. Edward had calmed down after talking to Bella too. Hopefully this worked. Chapter 4. Wednesday 1 Jasper. Charlie's Pav. Emmett seemed antsy this morning. Edward played something on the piano again. What was I going to do with my kids if this didn't help them? Bella's Pav. I was glad that no one had called me last night. I had been very teared. Lee smiled when she saw me, but looked hesitant. I sighed. Spit it out, Lee. She blushed. Well, I kind of got asked out for Saturday. But I know you have. I can take care of the office by myself, no worries. She smiled happily, as long as you give me his name. She giggled, Jacob Black. I sighed, finally, then ran into my office giggling. I just giggled each time she walked into my office. At 3:45 I got out Jasper's file along with the group file. I added some notes into the group file. Is he interested in finding a wife? Does he prefer men? Is he afraid of how his children will react to a new member in the family? At exactly 4 o'clock Lee led Jasper into the room. Hello, Jasper. I greeted as he took a seat. Hi, he said. Well, better than his brothers already. Now how about we start by you tell me what you like to do? I said hopeful. What do you like to do? He countered back. Confrontational. I like to read, I like to do my job, and I love helping people. What about you? I like reading about the Civil War. Why is that? I asked looking over at my bookcase to make sure I had a few books for him. It has strategy, history, plus, it keeps me isolated, he responded. Isolated? From what? I asked gently. From the complaining. Everyone is always complaining about how Carlisle is never around. But I think he just feels like he has to take care of us, and doesn't know what to do. I mean really you're in a house with 3 couples. Would you want to be around to see the goo-goo eyes, the kisses, the hugs, and the affection? Hell, I would be working all the time too. Plus being a doctor isn't easy, he said. I understand what you mean. I paused as I got up and grabbed one of the books I had. Do you like fighting in school? He shook his head. Do you like talking back to your teachers? Again he shook his head. Then tell me, why do you do it? I fight because I have to stand by my brothers. The teachers usually have the facts wrong about the Civil War. They never want to hear it when I bring in my research to show them. He responded calmly. I looked over at the clock. It was already 5. Here, take this book. You can bring it back when you finish it. I have a few more here and some more at home that I will bring into the office. If you ever felt like talking, please call me. If you need a place to read, call me and I can open up the office and stay here until you calm down or clear your head. He looked surprised. Thank you, Dr. Bella. You're welcome, Jasper. See you soon, I said as I went back to my desk to update his file. Lee and I locked up after my last patient and went our separate ways home. Time skip. I had changed into my pajamas when I got home and made dinner. As I finished cleaning up from my dinner when my work ringed and sounded out from the kitchen table where I had left my phone. Dr. Isabella-san, how may I help you? I answered, Dr. Bella, it's Edward. Hi Edward, is everything okay? I'm not sure. Can I go to your office to play? Of course, but will you tell me why you don't want to play at home? Okay, but can I tell you after I get there? Sure, I'll meet you there in a few minutes, okay? Thank you, Dr. Bella. No worries, Edward. I hung up and ran upstairs to change into comfortable yet appropriate clothes. As I was about to head out the door, my phone began ringing again. This time a different number. Dr. Isabella Swan, how may I help you? Dr. Bella, it's Emmett. Can I please go and blow off some steam? I was going to go out last night, but I told you I wouldn't, so I have all this energy. I just don't want to blow up at the wrong time, you know. Of course you can, Emmett, but, your brother will be playing the piano, so it's fine. And if he wants me to do something quiet, I don't want to do something stupid. I promised you I wouldn't go to the streets, so I won't, but, okay, Emmett, I'll see you there. I hung up and got into my car. When I arrived at the office, there was a Volvo in the parking lot. Edward got out of the car when he saw me get out of mine. He thanked me again. I explained that Emmett had called, and he said it was cool with him. As I opened the door and disarmed the alarm, Emmett pulled up with Jasper in the passenger's seat. I let them in, then reset the alarm and locked the door behind us. Okay, Jasper, why are you here? I asked as I lead them to the recreation room. I wanted to switch the book you gave me, he answered. Was something wrong with the one I gave you? I asked, worried. No, it was fascinating. I already finished it, he said, looking down shyly. I giggled. All right, pick one. Then go into the recreation room with Emmett. While I talked to Edward, he did as I asked, and I noticed Emmett punching away at a punching bag. Okay, Edward, your brothers can't hear us from the recreation room. What made you want to play here instead of at home? I asked, taking out Jasper, Emmett, and Edward's files, along with the group file. There was a recital at school today. I had told Carlisle since the first day of school 2.5 weeks ago, but he didn't show up. He didn't even remember, Edward said, looking at his shoes angrily. Did that make you mad? I asked, wanting him to let it out. Yes, it made me feel worthless. I felt rejected, angry, sad, let down, unwanted, abandoned. He was struggling for words. Go play what you feel, Edward, I whispered as I saw the hurt in his eyes. He got up and all but ran to the piano. Emmett and Jasper looked over at him as he suddenly slammed down on the keys. They stared at their brother as he let his tears fall. Emmett sat down next to the punching bag and closed his eyes, listening. Jasper closed his book and leaned back in the chair he was sitting in. Charlie's Pav. When I got home, Edward was acting weird. Emmett was very fidgety and looked antsy. When Jasper got back, he went straight to his room with a book in hand. I went hunting to reduce the burning in my throat. When I returned home, only Rose, Alice, and Esme were home. I asked where the guys were, but they didn't know. Where were my boys? Were they okay? Chapter 5. Thursday 1. Esme. Charlie's Pav. The boys had finally gotten home sometime after 2 a.m. They seemed to have bonded. Today Esme was going to be the first of the girls to go and talk to Dr. Bella. Bella's Pav. The boys had gotten to talking after Edward finally stopped playing at around midnight. They asked each other some questions about what they had talked to me about. They all agreed on what they had said. They left at 2 in the morning. I decided to crash on my couch in the office. I used the bathroom to shower and change my clothes before Lee arrived. She knew that if I beat her into the office, the recreation room had been used during some hour of the night. She never asked who just brought in 2 cups of black coffee. I only had 3 patients before Esme arrived, so I was able to take a few naps. My facilities were the best in the state. The recreation room was as large as a gym. It had an adjoining greenhouse that was maintained by patients who enjoyed gardening. We had AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, meetings and NA, Narcotics Anonymous, meetings in the conference room. It was hard keeping up with all the pro bono work, but those were the people who usually benefited the most. Some psychologists from Port Angeles and Seattle had begun to send some of their patients here in the last few months. I was the last resort. I looked over at the clock. It was already 3:50. Esme would be here any minute. I quickly got her file along with the group file. I looked at the group file as I waited. Edward. Talk about giving attention to his children. Working Monday through Friday only. Try not to be on call so much. Listen to his children's pain. Emmett. Is he interested in finding a wife? Does he prefer men? Is he afraid of how his children will react to a new member in the family? Most of the problems revolved around the kids wanting a father who was there for them physically. Was this really just a cry for more love? As I thought about this, Lee led Esme into the room. Hello, Esm. I greeted her in motion for her to take a seat. Hello, Dr. Swan. She mumbled quietly, yet she seemed to have said it out of politeness more than want. Please, Dr. Bella, or just Bella. I told her. She nodded. How about you start by telling me what you enjoy doing? I like to garden, she mumbled again. That is wonderful. We actually have some gardens here in a small greenhouse. My patients actually tend to it. If you would like, you can drop by any time and do a little work. That would be nice, she said with a small smile. Now you father tells me that you have been putting on makeup in class, talking back, and constant ditching. Think we talk about why you do these things? I asked gently. Why do you care? She asked, seeming truly curious. Because you seem like a wonderful girl. It is a part of my job to help others, but mostly because your family seems like it needs help. I want to help, I responded, looking into her eyes as I spoke and tried to show my sincerity. As I said the words, I realized I was getting attached to the family. This could be fine, or even good, but it could go bad if they get attached and used me a crutch. I would have to be very careful. I just don't feel like being in school sometimes, she responded as she looked down at her shoes. Why? I pushed. Because if Alice goes to the mall by herself, there is no telling what could happen, she mumbled. You worry about your sister, I said, though I knew I was asking. Yes, she had tears in her eyes. I walked around my desk and offered her some tissues. Why? Because she shops a lot, she goes on binges and it's dangerous. She forgets where she is and just buys stuff. I can't let her go alone. If she went shopping in Forks then maybe, but she goes to Port Angeles and Seattle. Those are bug cities, she sniffled. I rubbed her back soothingly, then all of a sudden her arms were around me. She was crying into my neck. I was shocked but quickly recovered. I put my arms around her as she cried. Sometimes I think that if we had a mom, things would be different. We would have someone at home when we got there. Someone could listen to us. Carlisle would have a companion when we went out as a family. Then maybe he wouldn't be on call so much, she said, her voice cracking 3 times. I hugged her tightly as she nestled into my arms and just cried. After about an hour, she pulled away embarrassed. Don't even try to apologize. I am here as a person to talk to, a shoulder to cry on, or even someone to yell at, if it is what you need, I said as she cleaned away her final tears. We talked a few more minutes before she left. She asked if we could bring up the binge shopping during the group session, and I promised to make a note of it in the group file. Edward, talk about giving attention to his children. Working Monday through Friday only. Try not to be on call so much. Listen to his children's pain. The recital. Emmett, is he interested in finding a wife? Does he prefer men? Is he afraid of how his children will react to a new member in the family? Jasper, cutting Carlisle a little slack, a little bit of understanding. Esm, how to stop the binge shopping. Wow, the group session was going to be long and emotional. Lee and I locked up again before we headed home. Time skip. I had just finished dinner when my phone rang. This time I expected it. This is Bella, I answered. Hi Drive. Bella, it's Jasper. I'm calling on behalf of Emmett, Edward, and myself. We were wondering if we could go to the recreation room and use the piano. They wanted to use the piano, specifically? They were finally listening. Of course, I'll see you boys there in a minute. Thanks, Dr. Bella. I smiled as I ran to my car. This was wonderful. If they joined together and solved each other's problems, the smaller problems they had with their father would be easy to fix. I arrived at the office as the silver Volvo pulled in. Edward came out of the driver's side while Jasper came out of the passenger side. Emmett and Esm climbed out of the back. They were including her. I smiled and let them in before resetting the alarm. Edward went to the piano as Jasper sat with the book he had gotten yesterday. Emmett went to the stationary bike and began to slowly pedal as he closed his eyes and listened to Edward play. Esm looked at her brothers and boyfriend and smiled. I showed her the door into the nursery. She left it open as she started to tend to the plants. It was a wonderful sight. I leaned back in my chair and listened to the music. Edward's playing was very dark still, but I hoped that by the time I finished with him and his family, his playing would be filled with happiness. Charlie's Pav. When I got home from my late shift, only Alice and Rose were home. Where were my children going? Did they hate me so much that they didn't want to see me anymore? Where had I gone wrong? Chapter 6. FRIDAY1 Alice. Charlie's Pav. Only Alice and Rose had yet to have a session with Dr. Bella. I had my session on Monday. Then we had the group session on Tuesday. I really hope this works. Bella's Pav. Today was my session with Alice. I knew this was going to be difficult after what Esm told me. I was going to have to push Alice more than the others. I sighed as I got out of bed and made breakfast. I got to the office shortly after Lee. 3 of my patients had bad weeks, so I was overbooked today. but I had made sure to clear everything after 5, to make sure that I was not rushed with Alice. At 3:57 Lee let Alice into my office. "Hello, Dr. Bella," she said politely. "Hello, Alice. How are you?" I asked, a little confused with her friendliness. "I'm fine, thanks. So I guess I can go now, right?" she asked, looked towards the door. I shook my head. "No dice. Please sit down," I said firmly, as if daring her to do otherwise. She huffed and sat down with a thud. "Sorry, but you are here so I can help. We have to talk for that to happen. Now, how about we start with something simple? What do you like to do?" I asked, hoping she would talk. "I love to shop. It is my favorite thing in the world. It is so much fun." "Oh, my gosh, we should totally go shopping together." She was almost bouncing in her seat. That would be unprofessional. Sorry, Alice, but can you tell me why you love shopping so much?" Wow, she was very hyper. I was going to have to check for drugs. I was surprised that I got her to talk about shopping so quickly. "Well, it is just so much fun and you can never have too many clothes," she stated, as though wanting to add a duh to the end of the question. I sighed as I looked at her vibrating in her seat. "Alice, are you on drugs?" She stared at me. "What?" "I need you to be honest with me. If you are, I can help with that too. But I need to know, are you on drugs? Please don't make me draw blood to find out." I looked at her sternly. "No, I am not on drugs. I have a lot of energy. Shopping usually clams me down," she stated. Bingo! She used shopping to cope. Now cope with what? "Are you in need of calming down often?" I asked, pushing slightly. I mean it calms my anxiousness, you know," she asked, though it sounded like a statement. "Why are you anxious?" I asked gently. She paused. "I'm not sure. I guess," she sighed, shrugging and shaking her head. "Alice, anything you say to me during our session stays between us. If you feel like talking about something during the group session, then we can. But only if you bring it up or ask me about it ahead of time," I said, pushing her to talk. "Well, I guess I'm scared." She looked down at her feet. "Scared of what, Alice?" I knew this was the key to helping her. "Of being left behind," she said quietly. "Why are you afraid of being left behind, Alice?" I asked, pushing her a little more. "Because there is never anyone home. I mean, really, we leave for school and the house is alone. We get home, and there is no one there. We go on family outings, and it ends up being just us kids. What holds Carlisle to us? Next year we are all 18. He has no responsibility over us anymore. What is to stop him from leaving us whenever he feels like it?" Alice's Pav. I knew I couldn't tell her that he could leave whenever, but still, it was mostly the truth. Bella's Pav. She was afraid of Carlisle abandoning them. Oh, my heart ached at the thought. "Alice, why do you think that you kids hold no ties to him?" I asked as I looked at the clock quickly. It was already 6 p.m. Her siblings usually called by 9. "Well, we're adopted. We hold him back from living his life. We are a nuisance. I mean, he doesn't really care. He's never home. He only asks how we are after we've gotten in trouble. Sometimes when I max out one of the credit cards, or when the boys are fighting," she said quietly. "Alice, he does care about you guys. I mean, really, I have never had a father bring in his children. Some of my colleagues would say the same. You kids mean the world to him. He called me before you guys even moved here. He wanted to make sure you all receive the help you need," I said as I looked at her. "Really?" she asked, excited. I couldn't help but giggle slightly. "Yes. Now, 2 things. 1, would you like to talk about anything during the group session?" She nodded. "Maybe if we all told each other how much we care and mean to each other, I wouldn't feel so anxious, I guess." She looked worried that her idea would be bad. "Of course, Alice. Now, 2nd thing is, I want to give you a challenge. I want you to not go shopping at least until we have the group session," I said, hoping she would agree. She stayed quiet for a few minutes. "Okay, I promise." I smiled at her. "Want to wait a few minutes while I make some notes and then we can walk out together?" I asked, opening the group file in hers. I finished and we both walked out. Lee had already left, so it was just us as I locked up. I knew I'd probably be back in an hour or 2, but I need to get some clothes from home. We waved goodbye as we both drove away. Time skip. I had just finished eating and making a small lunch when my phone rang. "Isabella Swan," I answered. "Hi, Drive." "Bella," Alice answered. Was she going to join her siblings? "Hello, Alice. I was wondering if I could join my siblings tonight." "Of course, Alice." "Yay! Can we head over to the office now?" "Sure, I'll meet you guys there. See you soon, Bella." Then she hung up. I giggled slightly as I set 3 changes of clothes in my car, along with some of the books I had for Jasper. I grabbed some sheet music I had found in my old papers, and had decided to take them to Edward. I found some plant seed packets I had never gotten around to planting myself, so I was going to take those to Esm. I had to find something for Emmett and Alice, but only time would tell what I could find for them. I arrived at the office and I saw the Volvo in the parking lot waiting for me. They all walked out of the car and greeted me warmly. As I got all my things from the car, the boys took them and carried them for me. They were taught to be gentlemen, Alice said as I was about to protest. I led them all into my office. The boys set down my things and then looked over at me, pleading with their eyes. Alice looked confused as Esme did the same as the boys. Go ahead, but Jasper, I brought the books I told you about. And Edward, there is some sheet music you may like on top of those papers you were carrying. And Esme, there are some plant seed packets in the bag that Emmett had. Their faces lit up like Christmas lights. Alice, Emmett, don't worry, I'll find gifts for you too. Everyone grabbed their things as Emmett opened the door to the recreation room, and then went over to open the nursery door for Esme. Alice looked shocked at everything that she found behind the doors. This is the recreation room and that back there is the nursery. You may use anything and everything here, I told her as I pushed her into the room. Edward began playing from the heart. I knew he would. He seemed to like to let out all his pent-up emotions before playing any true compositions. Jasper had his head in a new book. Esme had started preparing some small pots for the plant seeds. Emmett began walking on the treadmill. Alice looked around, and as her eyes locked with painting supplies, a huge smile appeared on her face. I relaxed in my chair as I looked over their group file. Edward, talk about giving attention to his children. Working Monday through Friday only. Try not to be on call so much. Listen to his children's pain. The recital. Emmett, is he interested in finding a wife? Does he prefer men? Is he afraid of how his children will react to a new member in the family? Jasper, cutting Carlisle a little slack, a little bit of understanding. Esme, how to stop the binge shopping. Alice, tell each other how much they matter. It seemed as though we were already making so much progress, yet it had been so little time. Charlie's Pav, I had to work a 24-hour shift today. I wouldn't be home to see how many of my kids were home. I missed them so much. Chapter 7. Saturday 1 Rose. Charlie's Pav. I was on my way home from finishing my 24-hour shift. I had asked for the next 3 days off, giving me a rest from my 24-hour shift and leaving Monday and Tuesday open for my personal session and the family session with Bella. Bella's Pav. I couldn't believe how calm all the kids were when they left my office. They seemed to leave everything behind. I knew that letting them come to the recreation room every night was making us all attached, but I think attachment is what they need. Once their sessions were over, I would love to continue a relationship with them. They seemed like great people. Lee was not coming in today, so I had to make my own coffee. I only had 2 appointments before my session with Rose. Something told me one would be the most difficult of the girls, but so far I had gotten to the 5 that had come in. 1 to go, and their father who I knew would talk. My day went by slowly. Charlie's Pav. I was getting out of the shower when I heard the others downstairs. Rosie, you have to trust her. She is really nice, Emmett was saying. Yeah, plus she lets us hang out at her office at night, Esme added. Come on Rose, we need to admit that this family needs help, Edward continued. She can make us happy again, Jasper said. I've seen it, Alice whispered. I froze, and I know they all froze too. Alice, it's been years since you've had a vision, Jasper said. I know, but last night while I was painting I had one. Alice continued quietly. You did? Edward sounded confused. Yes, Alice said firmly. Wait, how come I didn't hear it? Edward sounded even more confused. You were busy playing. It happened in the first half hour, Alice said quietly again. They all went quiet. Carlisle, you can join the conversation, you know, Edward said after a few minutes. I sighed and went down to join them. I've been hearing things more clearly, Edward mumbled. I've had 2 visions since my session, Alice added quietly. I can feel again, Jasper added. I feel stronger again, Emmett muttered. I don't feel alone anymore, Esme added, leaning towards Edward. It had been years since any of us could feel or us our gifts properly. Was it all psychological? Was it tied to their problems? Fine, I'll be nice, Rose said as she left for her session. 1 session with each one and already they were getting better. Maybe there was more hope than I thought. Edward smiled at me as the others all surrounded him. They had grown closer than they had been in years. Bella's Pav. When Rose arrived I was surprised that she seemed open. Hi Dr. Bella, she said shyly as she took a seat. Hello Rosalie, how are you? I asked, hoping to get her talking about something. I'm good. I was actually not very happy about having to come here, but my siblings told me how much it was helping them to just talk it out. So I have decided to try this out. I want my family to be happy again, she said as she looked straight at me. Protective. Good. So do you mind if we start off like I have with the others? She shook her head. Good. So how about you tell me what you like to do? I told her. I like doing yoga, it relaxes me, she stated simply. Good. Is there anything that stresses you out or makes you anxious? Pretty much what do you need to relax from? I asked. Well, I'm not sure. She looked deep in thought. Close your eyes and concentrate on why you need to relax, I told her. She closed her eyes. I guess relax from school, from life. I think that maybe I have to relax from everything that goes on. I mean, being bad and bitchy gets tiring. Why are you bad and bitchy? I pushed her. Well, it gets Carlisle's attention when we're bad, and being bitchy keeps people at arm's length, so I don't get attached. She responded quietly. You want to become attached? I asked. Because just when I'm making friends, we move to a new town, or they move, or like with the family, by next year we will be separated. She sounded so sad. Rosalie, who says you will be separated next year? I continued. Because everything has changed so much. Carlisle is home even less. Edward doesn't play anymore. Esme doesn't garden. Alice has been shopping every day except yesterday when she came here. Jasper reads less. And don't tell anyone this, but Emmett has been street fighting, and it worries me that something will happen. She was borderline hysterical. Rose, I think that maybe you should join your siblings here. I don't know if they will be coming tonight, but they come here to relax. Edward plays from the heart. Esme gardens away. Alice paints. Jasper reads. Emmett works out. You can find something to do like the others. I told her, hoping to calm her slightly. She looked up at me. They have been coming here? I giggled. Yes, at night around 9 p.m. until around 1 or 2 in the morning. She looked thoughtful. I'll think about it. Okay, well then I think that is everything for today, or for now. Would you like to bring any of this up during the group session? I asked. Yeah, can we talk about like being a family again? She asked timidly. Of course we can, I said as I gave her a mall hug. She seemed shocked but hugged me back. She left and I updated my notes in her file and in the group file. Edward, talk about giving attention to his children. Working Monday through Friday only. Try not to be on call so much. Listen to his children's pain. The recital. Emmett, is he interested in finding a wife? Does he prefer men? Is he afraid of how his children will react to a new member in the family? Jasper, cutting Carlisle a little slack, a little bitter understanding. Esme, how to stop the binge shopping. Alice, tell each other how much they matter. Rose, being a true family. Then I left, heading home and locking up behind me. Time skip. At exactly 9 p.m. my phone rang. Isabella Swan. Hi Bella. We were wondering if we could use the recreation room again. Of course, I'll meet you guys there. Thank you. I got to the office shortly after. This time there was a Jeep instead of the Volvo. All 6 of the Cullen children stepped out of the car and came over to help me out of mine. We walked into the office and I locked up behind us. Edward went straight to the piano and began to play. Esme went to the nursery. Emmett went to the elliptical. Jasper got a new book from my shelf. Alice went over to the painting materials. And Rose looked around at everyone before going to a small area that I had cleared earlier and put a yoga mat on. She began doing some simple yoga. I watched them proudly and I admired how quickly they were progressing. Charlie's Pav. After Rose came home from her session, all the kids went out on a hunt. I had expected them back home, but they never returned. What had I done wrong? Did my children hate me so much for changing them? For dooming them to eternity? Chapter 8. Monday to Carlisle. Sunday. Charlie's Pav. I spent the day at home, but I was all alone. All the kids were out. Bella's Pav. The Cullen children asked if they could hang out with me on Sunday. I told them that it was fine with me, as long as their father knew where they were. They all mumbled a yes, but I don't think they told him. Monday. Charlie's Pav. By the time the kids got home yesterday I was worried sick. I asked them where they had been, and they asked why I cared. I was heart-fallen. When 4:30 rolled around I left the house to go to my appointment. Bella's Pav. My day had been going very well. At 4:50 Lee escorted Carlisle into my office. Hello Dr. Bella, he said, sounding a bit sad. Hello Carlisle. How are you doing? I asked, surprised that he was so unsociable. Not good, he mumbled. Why? Did something happen? I asked, worried now. My kids hate me, he said in a sob. Oh crap. I ran over to him and set my hand on his shoulder. He turned into me and circled his arms around me. I felt a jolt of electricity run through me, but I let that slide to the back of my mind. I wrapped my arms around him as he cried. They won't talk to me. They are never home when I am. I try to ask them about their lives, and they blow me off. Where did I go wrong? Carlisle, those kids love you so much. I think that you raised them as best as you could. You are a wonderful father. I whispered to him as he calmed down. He looked up at me, suddenly realizing that he had been sobbing into my chest. He immediately pulled away. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. I had to cut him off. Carlisle, it's okay. All you wanted was a little bit of confront. He looked down at his lap. Carlisle, I am going to ask you some pretty personal questions. Can you answer them truthfully, please? I asked as I sat back in the chair next to him. Sure, I'll do anything to help you help my family and me, Carlisle said, sitting up straight. Have you ever looked for a life partner? I asked, not knowing his preference. I have thought about the idea once or twice, but I have never really looked. I think that when it is time for me to get a wife, I will find her, he responded. Okay, how many friends would you say you have? I continued. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but shut it quickly. I guess 3 not very close friends abroad, he said after a few minutes. Did you not have any friends at your old town? I knew he would have a few, but only 3, and they were abroad. No, I have dedicated my time to my work and trying to get my kids to stop hating me, he said again, looking sad. Why do you think you kids hate you? I asked. Because of the life I have given them. Because I am not the man they want me to be. Because they weren't even home yesterday, and when I asked they didn't even bother telling me where they had been. He responded, frantic. Carlisle, your children were here. They asked if they could hang out, and I said it was fine if you knew where they were. But apparently they didn't tell you. They were here. Carlisle seemed happy to know that his kids had been under my watchful eyes. Yes, just like they have been for most nights of the past week, I replied. This is where they have been coming? He sounded so confused. I sighed. Yes, they find the recreation room relaxing, I responded, getting up and motioning him to follow. I showed him the recreation room. He looked around, and when he saw the wall lined with books, his eyes twinkled. He walked over to the shelves, his muscles becoming pronounced as he reached for one of the books on a high shelf. Wait, was I checking out my patient? Oh man, this is not good. They come here then, Carlisle murmured. You may come if you would like, I said before even realizing I was saying my thoughts. Would they like that? He sounded scared that they would be mean to him. I'm not sure, but this is my office. I decide who comes into the recreation room, I stated. He nodded. Is there anything you want to talk about during the group session tomorrow? I asked him like I had asked the others. I would like to ask them why they hate me, he said in a whisper. I nodded. Then I guess our session is over. If you would like to use anything from the recreation room, you may. It is almost 9, so your kids will be calling soon. We had spent quite some talking, and he had spent even for time crying. The coolness of his skin had felt good. Stop, I yelled at myself in my head. He looked around, then began walking over to the couch and sat down with his face in the book he had gotten. At 9 p.m. my cell rang. Hello, I answered, knowing it was them. Hi Dr. Bella. How are you, Edward? I'm doing okay, thanks. We were wondering if would go to the office again? Yeah, come on over. I'm still here, so just walk in. Alright, thank you. Carlisle, he looked up at me. Your kids are on their way. He nodded and then looked back down at his book, but I could tell he was no longer reading. I have no idea what possessed me to walk over and set my hands on his shoulders. He relaxed at my touch. Don't worry. I think they will find your presence as a surprise, but I think they will like your interest, I said, rubbing his shoulders. He seemed to have hard skin, so I just ran my hands from side to side. He sighed and leaned back into my touch. I heard the door opening and was about to walk back to my desk when Carlisle grabbed my hand and pulled me toward him with pleading eyes. I nodded and sat next to him, pulling out a book from the shelf next to me. The kids walked in. Hi drive, Bella, they coursed. Hello, go ahead and do whatever you like, I said, looking up only to find them staring at Carlisle, who had also looked up. What are you doing here? Emmett said bluntly. Carlisle's eyes flashed with pain. I saw Jasper flinch. I thought I would spend some time here. While you guys did your thing, they all looked surprised, but I knew that it meant a lot to them. However, Carlisle mistook the silence. He sighed. If it makes you uncomfortable, I'll just leave, he said in a whisper as he made to get up. No, Rose almost shouted, noticing he was about to leave. Please stay, Alice whimpered. Yeah, S matted. Come when you have to stay, Jasper said. We can work out. Emmett sounded shy. You can listen to me play, Edward added in a shy voice. Carlisle looked taken aback but sat back down. The kids went to do their thing. As Edward began to play, I stood up and walked into my office. I looked back to see everyone had stopped what they were doing, closed their eyes, and were listening. Carlisle had tears running down his face. Chapter 8.5. Monday to Carlisle. Monday. Charlie's POV. By the time the kids got home yesterday, I was worried sick. I asked them where they had been, and they asked why I cared. I was heart-fallen. When 4:30 rolled around, I left the house to go to my appointment. I arrived at Dr. Bella's office at 4:50, and her receptionist, Lee, led me in. Hello, Dr. Bella, I said lightly. Hello, Carlisle. How are you doing? She asked politely. Not good, I mumbled. I mean, what else can I say? Why? Did something happen? She asked, sounding genuinely worried. I could not stop the tears that had been threatening to fall for so long now. My kids hate me, I choked out as I began to sob. I felt a soft, warm, comforting hand on my shoulder, and turned into them. I felt a jolt of electricity run through me. But my sorrows were too overwhelming for me to even think about what had happened. I buried myself in the warmth that was so comforting. I felt her tighten her hold on me. They won't talk to me. They are never home when I am. I try to ask them about their lives, and they blow me off. Where did I go wrong? Did I make such a huge mistake in changing my children? Carlisle, those kids love you so much. I think that you raised them as best as you could. You are a wonderful father, she whispered comfortingly to me. I calmed down a bit, and suddenly I realized that the warmth was Dr. Bella's wonderfully full, soft chest. Crap, I pulled back from her. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. But before I could finish, she cut me off. Carlisle, it's okay. All you wanted was a little bit of confront. I looked down embarrassed. Carlisle, I am going to ask you some pretty personal questions. Can you answer them truthfully, please? She asked as she sat next to me. Her warmth still reached me, and I had to fight the urge to get back to it. Sure, I'll do anything to help you help my family and me, I said, sitting up a little straighter. Have you ever looked for a life partner? She asked, sounding cautious. I have thought about the idea once or twice, but I have never really looked. I think that when it is time for me to get a wife, I will find her. I responded as I thought about how Isabella felt wrapped around me, comforting me. I wonder what it would feel like to hold her. What it would feel like to be buried deep inside her. Wait, after 300 years. Carlisle Cullen was feeling horny for my children's psychologist? No, this can't be. This must be a reaction to the comfort. Yeah, that's it. Okay, how many friends would you say you have? She asked. I was about to tell her, but then I realized the only friends I had were the Volturi brothers. The Denali family was more like family, not friends. I guess 3 not very close friends abroad. Did you not have any friends at your old town? She asked, sounding surprised. No, I have dedicated my time to my work and trying to get my kids to stop hating me. I responded, returning to my doom and gloom attitude. I hated how my children hated me. Why do you think you kids hate you? She asked gently. Because of the life I have given them. Because I am not the man they want me to be. Because they weren't even home yesterday, and when I asked they didn't even bother telling me where they had been. I responded frantically while remembering the resentment I saw in their eyes every day. I remembered how horrible it felt to be alone once more, like I had been for the first 200 years of my existence. Carlisle, your children were here. They asked if they could hang out, and I said it was fine if you knew where they were. But apparently they didn't tell you. They were here, I exclaimed. Of course they were here. Were they getting extra sessions? Were they bonding? Yes, just like they have been for most nights of the past week, she replied. This is where they have been coming? They had been here the entire time? Every night? She sighed. Yes, they find the recreation room relaxing. She motioned for me to follow her. I did as I was told. She led me into a room that had equipment and supplies for so many activities. My eyes landed on a wall lined with books, and I felt hope. I walked over and picked up a book. I heard her heartbeat speed up, but it was probably due to some thought she was having. They come here then, I murmured quietly as I smiled. You may come if you would like, she said quietly. Would they like that? Would they hate me if I intruded in their time here? I'm not sure, but this is my office. I decide who comes into the recreation room, she stated stubbornly. I thought for a second before I decided to stay. Is there anything you want to talk about during the group session tomorrow? She asked. I would like to ask them why they hate me. I almost whimpered. She nodded, looking at the clock. Then I guess our session is over. If you would like to use anything from the recreation room, you may. It is almost 9, so your kids will be calling soon. I walked over to the couch and sat down. I began to read the book I had gotten, at human pace. At 9 p.m. her cell rang. Hello, hi Drive. Bella, how are you, Edward? I'm doing okay, thanks. We were wondering if would go to the office again? Yeah, come on over. I'm still here, so just walk in. All right, thank you. Carlisle, I looked up at her. Your kids are on their way. I nodded and turned back toward the book, the words forgotten. After a few moments, I felt a wonderful warmth on my shoulders. I relaxed immediately. It felt so nice. Don't worry. I think they will find your presence as a surprise, but I think they will like your interest, she said as she continued to calm me. I leaned into her touch, and as I heard the kids come in, I took hold of her hand, silently asking her so stay near me. She sat down next to me, getting a book for herself from the shelf. The kids walked in. Hi Drive, Bella, they chorused. Hello, go ahead and do whatever you like, she said as I felt all their eyes on me. What are you doing here? Emmett said bluntly. That hurt. He didn't want me here. I thought I would spend some time here. While you guys did your thing, they all looked surprised. They all wanted me gone. I sighed. If it makes you uncomfortable, I'll just leave, he said in a whisper as he made to get up. No, Rose almost shouted. Please stay, Alice whimpered. Yeah, added. Come when you have to stay, Jasper said. We can work out? Emmett sounded shy. You can listen to me play, Edward added in a shy voice. They wanted me. I sat back down stiffly. All the kids separated and began to do their own thing. As Edward began to play, Dr. Bella left for her office. I sensed all the others freeze, his playing. It was so deep. He sounded in such pain. As I felt something fall on my hand that lay in my lap, I found I was crying. Chapter 9. Tuesday 2, Group. Tuesday. Charlie's Pav. I never thought that I would enjoy a woman's company so much. Wait, what am I talking about? I should be focusing on my children. But the way her hands felt on my shoulders, the stress just faded away. Bella's Pav. Yesterday I had talked to Carlisle after his kids had left. I found his presence comforting, but I knew that we could never be. Today was going to be their group session. Hopefully we can talk everything out. I got all their files out and put them on my desk. At 4:30 the intercom rang out with Lee's voice. Dr. Swan, your 5 o'clock is here. Send them in, I said back. The Cullen family walked in, and unlike the first time they all walked through my door, they all said a warm hello. Hello everyone. They all sat down. I was thinking that we could pull names out of this box and see what everyone wanted to talk about. Is that all right? They all nodded. Okay, just to let you know, my name is in there also. I have a few questions I would like to ask that need to be addressed in order for this to work. They all nodded. I motioned for Edward to pick a name. Alice, he said as he handed me the paper. I nodded. Okay, Alice, can you tell everyone what you would like to discuss? She looked a little scared, but nodded. Dr. Bella said that I should never feel like we don't love each other, but we never say it. So I was wondering if we could all tell each other how much we matter. They all looked shocked at what she had said. Carlisle looked especially pained. I think that is a great idea, Alice. I am so sorry that I have not been better at letting you know that you are special, and that I love you so much, sweetie. Alice stood and hugged him. I motioned for Emmett to get the next name. He said loudly. I looked over at her, motioning for her to begin. My greatest concern is Alice's binge shopping. She looked over at Alice apologetically. Dr. Bella and I talked about that. She helped me realize that shopping is no way to cope with everything, Alice said. Really? Said exited. Yup, but I can still shop, right, Dr. Bella? Alice looked so scared I would say no. I had to giggle. Of course, Alice. But you can't go alone. And you have to have a set limit of how much you can spend. She nodded. I looked over at Jasper and motioned for him to get a name. Rose, he said, looking at his twin. Well, I was hoping we could talk about being a real family, Rose said, looking at her shoes. What do you mean? Edward asked, confused. I mean family trips where Dad doesn't have to leave. Weekends where we just lounge around and watch movies. Or going out to dinner and all of us being together. Rose continued, looking up and over at Carlisle. I can do that, Carlisle said, almost pleading. Rose smiled as the others agreed to try and be more like a family. I motioned for to get the next name. Edward, said, looking over at her boyfriend. Well, I have a few things I want to talk about. Most have to do with Dad, Carlisle. Edward looked towards Carlisle as he leaned forward in his chair, trying to convey how much he wanted to be better. Maybe if you could ask us about our day when we haven't been in trouble, or you could only work Monday through Friday, so that you could spend time with us. Maybe you could try and not be on call so much, or you could listen to us when we ask you things, Edward said, now fighting tears. I can do all of that for you guys, Carlisle promised. Carlisle, why didn't you go to the recital? Edward said as a few tears slipped out. Carlisle looked stumped. That's next week, I wrote it down. It's next week, isn't it? No, Dad, it was Wednesday. Edward almost yelled. Carlisle looked torn. I can't, Edward the first, I'm so sorry. I really thought I had written it down on the right day. Please, I am so sorry, Edward. Carlisle now had tears in his eyes too. Edward now looked surprised. You cared? Of course I did. I was looking forward to it all month, Carlisle exclaimed. Edward was quiet for a few minutes. He smiled at his father. I guess you were kind of busy making plans with the psychology appointments, too, huh? Carlisle smiled, understanding that he was forgiven. I smiled and held out the names to Alice. Jasper, she said happily. I wanted to talk about how we sometimes hold Carlisle to impossible standards. We always want him to be there, but we never make it any easier. We are always fighting and getting in trouble. Maybe if he didn't have to leave the hospital to get us out of the principal's office every few days, Then maybe he could take more time off, Jasper said, looking at his siblings. They all seemed to understand, and after some discussion, they decided Jasper was right. I held out the names to Rose. Emmett, she said almost as happily as Alice. Well, I think that everyone in this family has someone except for Carlisle. Everyone looked at him confused. Carlisle. Dad, do you like dudes? Carlisle choked on air. Excuse me? Well, you never date. Is it because you're into dudes? Do you think we'll think any less of you? Emmett continued. Carlisle still looked shocked that his son would ask him so bluntly about his sexuality. No, Emmett. I am not into men, though I am glad that it would not change how you see me. Then are you afraid of adding a member to our family? Emmett asked. Well, no, but you kids have always come first, Carlisle said, a little confused. Is that why we don't have a mom? Emmett now sounded like a child. Not necessarily. When you kids came into my life, I decided to stop looking for love. If it ever found me, I would pursue it. But it hasn't come into my life, Carlisle explained. Think you could look for it? Alice whispered as the others nodded. Is that what your behavior is about? Wanting a mom? I asked, interrupting for the first time. They all looked sheepish, but nodded. Carlisle looked distressed. You kids just want a mom? They all nodded. Bella could be our mom, Edward said. My eyes widened as the kids smiled and looked down, and Carlisle and I looked over at Edward. He looked shocked. I said that out loud? Huh? He asked. Carlisle nodded and turned to look at me. I blushed and looked down. I think we should move on. Carlisle looked away from me and cleared his throat. I held out the remaining two names. Carlisle, he stated. He took a deep breath. I wanted to talk about why you kids seemed to hate me. They were all about to protest, but I realized that you all just wanted my attention. Then when I was used to only having time to talk to you kids when I got home, I just let things get out of hand. I am sorry. They all jumped out and hugged him. After a few minutes, they all sat down around him. He chuckled slightly as Rose and Alice leaned their heads on his knees. I guess I'm left, I said, looking at them. Well, what I wanted to talk to you guys about will be surprising. But you need to stay calm. They all nodded. Okay, how does being vampires change the way you function as a family? They all froze. I smiled. I have known you were vampires for a while now, but I had never heard of a coven calling themselves a family. I guess you should know how I know about vampires and how I am still alive. They all nodded slowly. When studying abroad in Italy, I ran into one of the Volturi kings, Marcus. He had just lost his wife, and I worked with him to get over her death. I learned about vampires and about the odd vegetarians that lived in Alaska, along with the ones who moved every few years. I know you are them. Anyways, Marcus told me everything in exchange that I help him. They looked stunned. It doesn't change the dynamic, just instead of dinner it's hunting. Stuff like that. Carlisle responded, standing to be in front of his kids. I was now a threat. I won't put this information into your files, but I had to know. They all nodded as Jasper set his hand on Carlisle's shoulder. We would never, Carlisle, Jasper said in a hurt tone. Wouldn't you? Carlisle asked, looked at the floor. Wouldn't they what, Carlisle? I asked. Wouldn't we resent him for making us who we are now? Edward responded quietly. Never, they all reaffirmed. You are different because of your diet. Is that what you are referring to when you say that? I asked, confused. Yes and no. You see, Carlisle changed me, Edward, Emmett and Esme, Rose responded. We were all pretty young, but we were dying, Esme added. Yes, you were the coven with the youngest members. If I am correct, you were cutting it pretty close to creating immortal children, Carlisle. The age limit is 16, I said, looking over at him. He nodded. Yes, but I could not let them die. They all sighed. If you hadn't changed us, we would have never met our soulmates, Emmett added. Carlisle seemed reassured. Edward, how did you know what Carlisle meant? I asked aloud. It is my gift, Edward replied. You read minds? I asked. Everyone's but yours. I have actually been able to hear more in the last week than I have in years, Edward responded. That is because your powers are ties to your emotions. Does anyone else have a power or gift? I asked, looking around. I'm stronger than most, Emmett responded. It made sense. I can feel and control emotions, Jasper said. I can see the future, Alice added. I nodded at all of them. Rose, Esme, and Carlisle. I want to ask you three to be careful. You may have a dormant talent that may make itself known in the next few days or weeks. Seeing as you have made the progress people make in months in a single week, we will schedule another week of sessions. After that, we will see if you need any more. I smiled slightly as they all agreed. All the kids left, but Carlisle remained. How are you alive? I was shocked by his question. Arrow decided that I should live. He said that one day they would come for me and I would be turned. To tell you the truth, I don't mind my fate. It is the way that I shall feed that scares me. I can only hope that I will have the control and restraint to feed off of animals. I said, looked out the window. If or when that day comes, my family and I offer our services. We will help you if you want us to," he said as he placed his hand on my shoulder and left. I knew my day was coming soon, but he didn't have to know that I only had 3 years, max. Charlie's Pav. To say I was surprised that she knew our secret is an understatement, but it made me feel hopeful at the same time. When she said that she was not afraid to become one of us, my heart soared. When she said she wanted to be a vegetarian but hoped she had the strength, I wished to help her. When I put my hand on her shoulder, I felt a jolt of electricity run through me. The feeling was wonderful. As I arrived home and was met with 6 pairs of hopeful eyes. "What?" I asked, fearful of their answer. "Well, she is already going to be a vampire," Alice began. "We all love her," Rose continued. "You seem to like being around her," Ems added. "You can't stop thinking about her," Edward said as I remembered he could hear my inner rambles. "Your feelings are mutual," Jasper continued. "She could be our mom," Emmett exclaimed finally. Chapter 10. Wednesday, Thursday to Edward Emmett. Wednesday. Charlie's Pav. I thought all night about the kids had said. If that were possible, would Bella love me? Could I finally have a wife by my side? Bella's Pav. I couldn't shake what Edward had said yesterday about me being their mom. Could I? I was going to be a vampire anyways. But would Carlisle want me? I was busy with my thoughts when Lee led Edward into my office. Thankfully, he could not read my mind. "Hello, Dr. Bella," he said happily. "Hello, Edward," I responded as he took a seat in front of me. "How are you?" "I'm fine, thanks," he responded. "Good. How do you feel the group session went?" I asked. "I think it went well. I can understand everything so much better now. Also, since I can use my gift again, I realized Carlisle cares so much. But though we didn't want him around. That is why he avoided us," Edward responded. "Good. Have you played the piano at home?" I asked. "Yes, I played all night," he responded, sounding quite proud of himself. Everyone listened to me. I smiled. "Is there anything else you would like to talk about?" I continued. "Yes, actually there is," Edward said, looking down at his feet. "Okay, what would you like to talk about?" I encouraged him. "What are your thoughts concerning my father?" he asked bluntly and with a smile on his face. "My thoughts on your father?" I asked, shocked. He nodded. "What do I tell him?" My heart was racing. I knew he would hear. "He is a good person," I stuttered. He smiled, or smirked is more like it, before saying goodbye and leaving. I was so screwed. Time skip. At 9 my phone rang. "Dr. Isabella Swan," I answered. "Hello, Bella. The kids were wondering if we could go to your office. It seems they have become accustomed to the late night outings." It was Carlisle. "Sure," I responded happily. Charlie's Pav. We arrived at Bella's office. Everyone went to do their thing while I sat back in the chair I had once sat in before. I looked over and stared at Bella the entire time we were there. When she had answered the phone, she had seemed delighted to know we were coming. Was it because of me? Thursday. Charlie's Pav. Last night I had once more placed my hand on Bella's shoulder before leaving. I had felt the same jolt. She had jumped slightly at my touch. Did she feel it too? Bella's Pav. When Carlisle left, he once more placed his hand on my shoulder. Again I felt a jolt. He smiled as I jumped slightly. Did he feel it too? Emmett arrived 20 minutes early for his appointment. "Hello, Dr. Bella," he exclaimed, giving me a hug. "Hello, Emmett," I responded, hugging him back. "How are you?" "I'm wonderful," he said. "Well then, how about we talk about the group session?" I asked. "Okay. Well, I think it helped me understand everything going on with my family. I'm glad you have been able to help us so much," Emmett responded. "Good," I responded. "Also," Edward said what I had been thinking. "It would be awesome if you could be our mom. We could hang out and you could help us whenever. We could make a mini recreation room at the house. It would be awesome," he continued. Wow, he really wanted a mom. "Emmett," I began, but he cut me off. "I know. You guys aren't even dating. And it would be odd for you since we're vampires. But we all love you so much," he said, looking up at me from where he sat. It was surprising such a big man could look like such a child. His wonder and curiosity toward having a mother were heartwarming. I couldn't respond to his suggestions. After he left, I stayed at the office. Were all the kids into this idea? Was Carlisle? Time skip. At 9 there was a knock on the office door. My phone rang at the same time. "Hello?" I answered the phone. "Hi, Drive. Bella, it's us," Alice responded. I pulled the door open as I shut my cell phone closed. They all greeted me and walked into the recreation room. Carlisle stayed behind to walk by my side. I blushed as his hand brushed against mine. We sat down and watched as his children played, drew, gardened, exercised, and read. Edward began to play a slow melody. I felt my eyes begin to close. Charlie's Pav. As Edward began to play softly, Bella's eyes began to close. She leaned into my body. I stiffened. She snuggled into me. I placed my arm around her as she sighed and drifted off into a deep sleep. I saw my children smile and pretend they had not seen or heard. Chapter 11. Friday, Saturday 2, Jasper S. Friday. Charlie's Pav. When the kids began talking too quiet for a vampire to hear, I knew something was up. They were planning on doing something. I wonder what it is. Bella's Pav. Spending so much time with the Cullen children was making me attached. I already knew that they wanted more from me. Could I end their sessions? Send them to someone else? No, I hated the thought of being away from them. When Jasper came into my office at 5, I was still conflicted. "Hello, Dr. Bella," he said happily. "Hello, Jasper. How are you doing?" I asked, looking up at him. "I'm fine, thanks. But you seem to be conflicted about something." Jasper began, trying to shrink the psychologist. "Jasper, this is your session," he sighed. "Tell me how you have felt since the group session." He looked like he wanted to argue, but didn't. "Well, now that everyone is not mad at everyone, we are all getting along great." "That is wonderful. How did you feel talking about what was bothering you?" I continued. It felt like if a weight had been lifted off of my shoulders. He responded with a gentle smile. I smiled back at him. "Can I ask you something?" he asked shyly. "Of course, Jasper, we can talk about anything you want." I responded quickly. "What are you conflicted about?" Jasper began, and before I could answer, he continued. "Do you know that you're falling for my father? Do you know that you are getting attached to me and my siblings? Do you want to make a life with him? Could we call you Mom?" I sighed. "Jasper, I am conflicted about some things that you do not need to know about. And I am well aware of the fact that I am growing attached. But you kids are too. I cannot respond to the questions of being with Carlisle or you kids being able to call me Mom, because it is not just my choice." Jasper sighed. "Just remember that I know how you feel, Dr. Bella." He chuckled as he left. Time skip. At exactly 9, my cell phone rang. "Hello, Cullen family. I would love nothing more than to spend my evening with you all. But I need to visit my father." "Oh, okay. Bye, Dr. Bella," Alice said in almost a whine. I went over to my dad's house. "Hey, Belle," he exclaimed as he hugged me tightly. "Bella," Sue said, coming out from the kitchen. "Hey, Dad." "Hi, Sue," I said, handing Sue some pies I'd made. "How have you been, sweetie?" Sue asked as my dad went into the living room. I sighed. "I have been great." "But," she prompted. I smiled. "But I think I am developing feelings for a patient." She looked up at me. "Really?" "Yes, but I'm his doctor," I said. "Yes, but you are a woman." "Bella, I have never seen you so worked up because of a man," she said, looking at my blush. "Who the heck is he?" I heard my dad say from behind me. My eyes widened. "Come on, I won't judge the guy. Who is it?" I can't tell you, Charlie," I responded, looking down, knowing he would not like that one bit. "Does he have a record?" he said, suspicious. "No, he is a patient," I said quietly. "What? Isabella, you know better than that. Some crazy guy shows up and you start falling for him," Charlie all but yelled. "He is not crazy, Dad," I said, fighting back tears. "Then why is he your patient?" Charlie shot back. "Because," but I stopped. "I can't tell you, and you know that." "Well, then you better get over him quick, Isabella," Charlie said before going back into the living room. I stood shocked before I ran out of the house. I heard Sue call out my name, but I just ran into my car and left. Charlie's Pav. I really missed seeing Bella today. Maybe I could go by her house just to see she made it home from her dad's okay? I ran out of the house without a second thought. When I reached Bella's home, my heart broke. She was lying in bed, crying her eyes out. How I wished to comfort her. Saturday. Charlie's Pav. I stayed at Bella's window until she fell asleep. I watched her toss and turn all night. Bella's Pav. When I woke up in the morning, I felt so tired. My only appointment today was SM. So I stayed home in my pajamas. I felt horrible. My father had always been hard on me, but he had never yelled at me. Never. Time skip. I went to the office at 4:30. Esme arrived at exactly 5. We talked about the group session. Like the others, she felt a lot better. She too asked me about what I thought of Carlisle. I told her the same thing I had told the others. When she asked if everyone could come to the office, it felt horrible to say no. She seemed sad but left with a small smile. I went home and cried some more. Why was the first man that I was interested in, and that I wouldn't have to leave? Why did my dad have to hear? What will my dad do when he finds out it is a vampire man I am falling for? When he finds out I would have 6 adopted children vampires if it worked out? Charlie's Pav. We were all sad to not be able to hang out with Bella again. I went back to her house only to find her crying again. I went back to the house. "Alice, I need you to try and use your powers. I need you to try and see why Bella is crying so much," I said as soon as I walked through the door. She tried, but no visions would come. Sunday. She tried every few hours all day, but it still wouldn't work. Bella said we couldn't go over to the office again today. Chapter 12. Monday, Tuesday 3 Alice Rose. Monday. Charlie's POV. I was really starting to worry about Bella. Alice kept looking but she couldn't see. All her visions of Bella were blurred or blank, but we knew she was safe because I spent all my free time watching over her. Bella's POV. I had stayed away from everyone and anyone who came or called. I went to work and did my job with a smile plastered on my face. Lee knew something was off but kept quiet. My thoughts were whirling. If I was changed and they didn't want me, would I be able to remain on the vegetarian diet alone? Would I have to wait for Arrow, Marcus and Caius to be changed? Could I be a mother to those kids? Why had Charlie not even tried to call me? Did my daddy truly hate me for falling in love? Sue had called, but I never answered. On and on they went. I was awakened from my thoughts as Lee led Alice into the room. "Hello, Dr. Bella," she exclaimed. "Hi, Alice. How have you been?" "Good. The group session really gave me a motive to not shop," she stated happily. "That is great, Alice," I said, trying to sound cheerful. She looked at me, leaning her head to the side. "Are you okay, Dr. Bella?" she asked quietly. I sighed. "Alice, this is your session. Is there anything that has to do with you and or your family?" She nodded. "Okay then, what would you like to talk about?" I asked. "Have you thought more about being with my dad?" she asked happily. I sighed again. "Alice, no really, I would love it if you were my mom. We could go shopping. We could hang out every day like we did at first." Her voice dropped to a whisper at the end. "Do you not like us anymore? Is that why we can't come at night to hang out anymore?" "Alice, what is going on with me has nothing to do with you or your siblings." She looked down. "Alice, look at me, Ollie." She looked up at me. "I am going through a rough patch, and I need to think some things through and deal with some personal things, okay? Does it have to do with my dad? You said it didn't have anything to do with me or my siblings. You left out my dad." Alice seemed afraid. "Ollie, I can't lie to you. Yes, it indirectly has to do with your father, but at the same time it truly doesn't." Alice nodded, though she looked confused. Shortly after, she left. Time skip. I went home and cried myself to sleep for the third night straight, or was it fourth? Charlie's POV. Bella cried herself to sleep once more. I felt so helpless. Again, Alice said that she couldn't see anything. At around 9:30 p.m., a police car cruiser pulled up to the house. Chief Charlie Swan got out and walked over to her front door. He stared at it for almost an hour as tears ran down his face, mixing with the rain. After that, he got back into the cruiser and left. Why had he been there? Why was he, like his daughter, crying? Tuesday. Charlie's POV. Rose was going to see Bella today. Alice said to ask if we could go later, because the visions of Bella were become a little clearer. Bella's POV. When I woke up, I still felt horrible. I knew Carlisle's session was tomorrow. What was I going to do? I went to the office and talked to my patients with a semi-clear mind. When 5 rolled around, Lee led Rose into the room. "Hi, Dr. Bella," she said as she took a seat. "Hello, Rosalie," I responded. We talked about random things before I asked how she had been doing since the group session. "I've been great. We have been spending a lot of time as a family," she said, sounding excited. "That is great, Rose. So is there anything else you would like to talk about?" I asked, guessing her answer already. "Well, there is one thing." She hesitated, looked anywhere but me. "Spit it out, Rose," I said nicely. She sighed. "If my dad and you were to get together, could we call you Mom?" I looked at her, shocked. "Rose, please don't ask me that." I felt the tears in my eyes. "Bella?" Rose said, looking at me sad. I need to go, Rose," I said, getting up and all but running out of the office. Charlie's POV. Rose got home in a tearless cry. "Rose, babe, what happened?" Emmett asked, frantic. At the same time, Alice was pulled into a vision. As her eyes cleared, she looked over at me. "Get to Bella's, you are going to want to hear this." As she finished her sentence, I was running out the door. When I arrived at Bella's house, her dad's cruiser was parked out front. Charlie was staring at the door. After half an hour, he knocked. Bella was in her room crying. Charlie knocked again. After another 10 minutes of waiting, he walked around the house to see if her car was there. As he walked back to the house, this time to the back door, Bella's cry intensified. The bathroom window was open, and as Charlie heard his daughter's cry, he ran to the front door, pulling his keys out. He ran through the house until he was in his daughter's room. "Belle, honey, what is it? What's wrong?" He was frenzied with worry. She cried harder. I moved to have a direct view of her room. Charlie, the big 6-foot man with muscles to rivaling that of a teenage athlete, was cradling his daughter in his lap as he rocked her slowly. She cried for almost 2 hours. He joined her every few minutes for a minute or two before regaining his composure. Daddy, I love him, she mumbled as she calmed. Baby, I'm sorry I called him crazy. I know you said that your patients are not crazy, just confused. You have 3 years before they come for you. Baby, I just want you to be happy. Charlie responded. Wait, 3 years? Who was coming for her? I know that you don't mind the change, and I will be allowed near you when you gain control, but I just wish you could find your soulmate. Charlie continued. That is the thing, Daddy, I think I have. I think I found my soulmate, she said as Charlie continued to hold her close. Bella's paw. Nothing felt better than having my daddy hold me while I cried. I knew he understood. He knew about my deal with the Volturi. He hated it, but he understood. Charlie's paw. She was in love with someone, a patient. Was it me? Chapter 13. Wednesday 3 Carlisle. Wednesday. Charlie's paw. I was going to see Bella today. Knew I would have to tell her I had been watching over her, but something told me she would not be mad. I can't wait anymore, I want to see my Bella. Bella's paw. My dad stayed with me last night. It was nice just being the two of us again. I mean, I love Sue, but she wasn't my birth mother. Today I was going to see Carlisle. I wonder will he too ask about Edward's comment. Time skip. At 4:30 Carlisle arrived. Hello Bella, he said as Lee let him in. Hello Carlisle, I said as a smile sprang onto my face. He sat down directly in front of me. Okay, how have you been since the group session? I asked, getting to the point. I have been really good. The kids and I talk to each other a lot more. We go hunting together too. I also talked to the hospital, and they said it was fine if I only worked Monday through Friday, and was only on call certain days, he said with a smile on his face. That is wonderful, Carlisle. I knew this was big. Yeah, it is. But I was wondering if I could talk to you about what Emmett said, he said, looking at the floor. Okay, go ahead, Carlisle. I prompted, a little nervous. I have decided that I want a wife. I know the kids want a mother. I actually really like someone. She is beautiful and I know that she could be with me for eternity. He was talking to his lap, but he was looking up at me through his eyelashes. If you feel like you want to pursue someone, then you should, I said. But who did he want? I want to, but I don't know if she wants me. I have been watching her all week. I've been watching her sleep, but she has been upset about something, and has been crying herself to sleep. I have wanted to comfort her so much, but she does not know I want to court her. I want to speak to her father as well, but I don't know how to approach her. Carlisle continued. I sighed. Carlisle, you are a vampire, correct? He nodded. You fall in love only once, correct? Again he nodded. Then just tell her you love her. I looked up at me. Okay. He paused as if wanting to say more. Spit it out, Carlisle, I said, giggling. I love you, he said, looking into my eyes. I freeze and stare back into his eyes. I love you, Bella. I have been watching you since the group session. I felt horrible watching you cry, Bella. I truly love you, and I would like to court you. He continued. You have brought my family back to life. You have made my children happy once more, giving them back their powers. I was still staring at him. Were you watching me last night? I wonder if he heard what my dad and I had spoken. Yes, but I didn't understand much. I heard you say that you love someone. If it is not me, it is okay. You have but to say the word and I will leave you be. He was rambling. Carlisle, I said, stopping him. I love you too. He looked at me, then all of a sudden he was kneeling beside me. Do you mean that, Bella? He asked, one hand on my face and the other on my knee. I took a deep breath. I'm sure, I whispered. He looked at me and slowly leaned forward. As his lips touched mine, the jolt of electricity that always passed through us was more intense than ever. I leaned into the kiss as he pressed me to him. He tasted amazing. We continued to kiss for a few minutes until I had to breathe. I opened my eyes, only to see his butterscotch honey eyes looking at me. He leaned his forehead against mine. Isabella, he whispered, taking a deep breath. I smiled at him. We were in our own little bubble. Do you and the kids want to come over today? I asked, knowing they had all missed it as much as I had. He shook his head. Can it just be the two of us? I blushed, but nodded. He hugged me close to his body again. Can we go to your house, so that when we finish talking you can get some sleep? He said, looking kind of flustered. Of course, Carlisle. Thank you for thinking about me. I responded, blushing. You are always on my mind, Isabella. He responded gruffly. I smiled as he said he would meet me at my house. Charlie's paw. Kissing her felt like the best thing in the world. I took my car back to the house and told the kids that she had said no to seeing us all today. I knew I was being mean, but they would find out soon enough. I went to Bella's on foot. It was quicker anyways. When she arrived, I opened her car door for her. She blushed once more. Man, she was so beautiful. She invited me inside and asked if I had ever gone in. I told her I may have been watching over her, but I would never impose. She smiled and kissed my cheek with a blush. After her human moment, as she called it, we sat down to talk. What would you like to talk about, Carlisle? She asked shyly. I would like to know what your father meant by you only have 3 years. I asked. She sighed. I figured. You see, when I told you about the Volturi, I left something out. I have until my 27th birthday to find happiness as a human. Before I turn 28, I am to go to Italy and be turned. I pulled her to me instinctively. I also let out a low growl. SHHH Carlisle. I'm okay. I'm not going anywhere. She cooed as she ran her fingers through my hair. I calmed instantly. Sorry, but I don't trust them. She smiled. You don't have to worry about them anymore, Carlisle. I love you, and she paused, looking hesitant. Tell me, my Isabella, I said gently. I want you to change me, she said, looking into my eyes. It would be my honor, my love, I said, kissing her once more. I pulled back after a few minutes. She smiled at me. You know you are the only person who will ever get away with calling me Isabella. I chuckled. Good, because you are mine, I said as I kissed her nose. But as I pulled back, I realized what I had said. Isabella, I'm sorry. You are not property. But before I could say more, she kissed me lightly. You're right, I am not property, but I am and will always be yours. She smiled at me as she said this, and I couldn't help but kiss her again. Since the first time we kissed, the electricity around us had been like a gentle buzz that calmed when we touched. I couldn't wait to meet her father. Would the Volturi hurt him for knowing the secret? Chapter 14. Thursday 3 Carlisle. Thursday. Charlie's Pav. I stayed with her all night, just holding her while she slept. I know that Alice had seen us together, and that at least Edward and Emmett wanted it. But would the others? As Bella began to stir, she tightened her hold on me and snuggled closer into my side. Bella's Pav. I didn't want to wake up. I had dreamt that Carlisle told me he loved me. I had told him the truth, and I had fallen asleep in his arms. As my pillow tightened its hold on me, my eyes popped open. There in all his glory was Carlisle Cullen with his arms around me. I looked up into his eyes as he smiled at me. It really happened. It wasn't a dream? I asked. He chuckled. No, my Isabella. It truly happened. I smiled as I leaned up to kiss his cheek. You need to get ready for work, he said as I pulled away. You usually are up a little later, but since we need to talk. I nodded. Yes, we definitely need to talk. I had my human moments as he went downstairs. As I went downstairs, I began to feel the buzzing that I had felt last night, and gasped. Carlisle? Yes, he was in front of me in a second flat. Do you feel the buzzing? I whispered as it intensified. He nodded. You feel it too? Huh. I nodded. What is it? He shrugged. I'm not sure. I think if we ask Jasper, he may be able to help. I nodded. How are we going to tell them? He sighed, leading me to the kitchen where I found he had made me breakfast. I am not sure how they will take it. I mean, they all said they wanted a mother, and they wanted me to have someone. But this is really soon and unexpected. I couldn't help but laugh. Carlisle, have your kids told you what they talked to me about this week? No, they haven't, he stated, looking hurt. I wasn't sure if it was because I laughed or because they hadn't told him. Well then, I can't tell you. But I will tell you that you will promise not to get mad at them, okay? I said as I began to eat and looked at him through my eyelashes. He looked at me and sighed. I promise not to get mad at my kids and whatever they have done. I smiled. But if I don't agree, I will make it known, he continued. I nodded. That's fair. I looked over at the clock and his face fell. If we want to keep this to ourselves until the group session, I have to leave. I got up and kissed him goodbye. Then I watched him disappear into the woods. I followed his lead and left for work. I was anxious all day, awaiting his arrival. At 4:30 he and the kids arrived. I smiled at all of them and saw Edward boring holes into Carlisle's head. I greeted them all as they sat down. Okay, to start, how about Edward tells me why he is trying to make a hole in Carlisle's skull? I asked. He is hiding something from me, Edward stated. And you are mad at him for wanting privacy? I asked. Nope, I'm mad because he is replaying a birth, and he knows I find the miracle of life disgusting. Edward almost hissed towards me. I heard Carlisle growl. Watch your tone, Edward. I knew it was instinct to protect me, but the kids didn't. I saw surprise in all their faces, especially Jasper. Not to mention the intense buzzing was almost unbearable. I sighed. How about we all take a deep breath now? I know that the 6 of you, I motioned to the kids, all planned on asking me to talk about the same thing this week. They seemed shocked to realize I knew that they had planned it. Yes, I figured it out by day 2. So care to tell Carlisle? Carlisle looked from his kids to me. Well, he prompted. We sort of, Alice began. Asked her the same thing, matted. You know about Rose, continued. You and Dr. Bella, Jasper continued. Getting together, Edward added. And her becoming our mom, Emmett finished. I looked at Carlisle as he looked his children shocked. I saw he was about to open his mouth, so I decided to remind him quickly of his promise. Carlisle, remember your promise. He huffed and looked at his lap for a few moments. I would like you kids to know that I am not happy about what you have done. They all looked down ashamed, but I understand why you did it. However, I don't think it was necessary. He continued in a softer tone. What? They asked together. Well, you see, we talked during my session, Carlisle said, standing up to stand behind me, resting his hands on my shoulders affectionately. They all smiled understanding. I blushed as he pressed his lips to my shoulder. You guys are together? Alice squealed. I nodded as I looked at them sternly. Yes, but I can be your doctor anymore. So until this session is over, I cannot be with him romantically. So you six will keep quiet. Right? They all nodded. I smiled. Good. How about we go out tomorrow? All of us. Masked. I nodded. I'm free after 4. I'm off at 3. Carlisle added. So we can? Rose asked, excited. I looked over at Carlisle, who was leaning his head on my shoulder. He looked into my eyes. Without word, I knew he was saying it was okay with him. I turned back to the kids. Yes, we can all go out tomorrow afternoon. They all smiled. Charlie's Pav. I was mad at the kids for being insensitive, but understood why. But I was just glad to finally be able to touch my Bella. It had been hell being so close but not touch her. The buzzing had almost been unbearable. Chapter 15. Friday 3 date night. Friday. Charlie's Pav. I stayed with Bella last night. It was wonderful to just hold her. I couldn't wait for our date night. Bella's Pav. I was once more awakened to find my angel lying next to me. We pretty much followed yesterday's routine. At work I was scatterbrained, and Lee gave me a weird look when I told her the Cullen family was no longer going to be seeing me. She didn't question me though, and for that I was grateful. Also, all my appointments for Saturday were moved, so that I only worked Monday through Friday, like Carlisle. That way we could spend time with each other and the kids. At 3:30 Carlisle sent me a text saying that Alice, Rose, and Esme were going to meet me at my house, so we could get ready to go out together. I sent him a text message back telling him I missed him. I miss you too, Isabella. XX Carlisle. I smiled at his message. At 4 o'clock I left to get home. When I arrived I saw the 3 Cullen girls waiting outside my door. We got ready and Alice brought me some new clothes, promising that she had not been shop. At 5 there was a knock on the front door. Rose went to open it for me as I finished outing on my shoes. I followed Esme and Alice downstairs. The guys were waiting for us. Carlisle was in front of me in seconds. It surprised me, but apparently not just me. Dad, you moved faster than usual, Edward said, shocked. What? He said as he hugged me close to him. I smiled and hugged him back. Don't you guys have super speed? Yes, we do. But I am the fastest in the family, and Carlisle just moved faster than I ever have. Edward continued while the others nodded. It is because of Bella, Jasper stated, matter-of-fact lie. Carlisle moved so his arms were around my waist, and he stood with his chest pressed into my back. How? He asked, resting his chin on my head. I giggled at him. The kids smiled. I blushed. Well, your need to be together is strong. I feel an energy around the two of you. Jasper continued. The buzzing? I asked. Probably. I must say you two were probably made for each other, Jasper added. Carlisle smiled as he leaned over to kiss my cheek. Shall we, love? I nodded and he led me outside with the kids following close behind. We went to the movies and then went to the mall to walk around. Alice promised not to buy anything. When they went to drop me off, they asked if we could all hang out after I finished work tomorrow. I blushed as I looked at Carlisle's large hand in my smaller one. Well, I actually moved things around so that I was free on Saturdays and Sundays. That way But I was stopped by Carlisle. He pressed his lips to mine. I could feel the love pouring from his lips to mine. He pulled back, not letting me go. Thank you, Isabella. Carlisle was going to stay again, but before the kids left I had to ask them. Wait, tomorrow would it be okay if I stole Carlisle until around 2? They all nodded, but Emmett looked confused. Do you not want us around? I jumped up from my spot next to Carlisle to stand right in front of Emmett, who wouldn't look at me. Emmett, I said sternly, look at me. He lifted his eyes up to meet mine. Sweetie, you kids mean a lot to me. I love you kids just like I love Carlisle, only in a different way. Tomorrow I want Carlisle to meet my dad because I know it is important to him. I don't want my dad to be overwhelmed. First he will find out I'm in love with a vampire. I don't want him to find out I will become a mom of 6 vampire adolescents at the same time. He looked really happy as he hugged me tightly. You are going to be our mom, he whispered. I giggled. Yes, but not for a little while, okay? He nodded along with the others. They left and as I tuned back to Carlisle, I was surprised to see him looking at me with pride in his eyes. You already know how to reassure our kids, he said quietly. I smiled as tears began falling from my eyes. Isabella? He asked concerned. You called them our kids. I hugged him as he chuckled. Charlie's pav. I held Bella as she cried happy tears. I held her all night. I just hope her father will like me. He will know what I am. Will he judge me? Chapter 16. Saturday 3 Meeting the Parent. Saturday. Charlie's pav. I was nervous about meeting Bella's father. I was also touched that she had remembered that it was important for me to court her properly. Bella's pav. I knew that Carlisle wanted to court me, which meant he was a very old vampire. But I would help him as much as I could. When we were about to leave the house, he pulled me to him. Can I kiss you, Isabella? He asked. You never have to ask, Carlisle, I said, lifting onto the tips of my toes. I pressed my lips to his. He kissed me back enthusiastically, his stone-hard lips making me tingle. The buzzing which had calmed with our touch flared. After a few moments, I felt his tongue ask for entrance into my mouth. I allowed it, and as out tongues battled for control, I felt complete. I wanted him closer, but I knew I needed more time. I knew that he would never push my boundaries. We pulled away, taking a couple deep breaths. He smiled as he kissed me chastely once more. We walked over to his silver Mercedes SLS AMG. Carlisle. I chastised. Yes, love? He asked cheekily. We need to get a family car, I stated as I climbed into the passenger's seat, and he held the door open for me. A few seconds later, he was on the other side of the car. Why? He looked confused, not to mention like a 5-year-old boy who was told we would be throwing away his favorite toy. We need a car that will fit us all, so we can go on family outings in one car. Don't worry, I won't make you get rid of this car. I quite like it. I smiled at him. He chuckled, giving me a breathtaking smile. Yes, dear. I giggled as he began driving towards my dad's house. I sighed. Okay, I want you to stay in the car when we get there. Carlisle looked hurt. I have to explain to my dad and Sue that I love you, and that you will never hurt me. You see, they hate vampires, and hate that I don't mind turning into one. But they just don't understand them. I continued to explain. He looked over at me. You want to face them alone, so that they don't judge me for what I am, a monster? A horrible predator? The most perfect of all predators? A soulless dead being? I looked at him fiercely. Do you have a middle name? He answered, confused and looking a little scared. Robertus. Carlisle Robertus Cullen. You are not a monster. You are not a soulless dead creature. You go against all of your instincts to be with me, to not kill, to save lives. You are no monster, and if you ever say that about yourself, I will have one of the kids hit you for me, I threatened. He gulped loudly. I'm sorry, Isabella. I will never refer to myself as such again. Good, I said, softening my voice, because soulless monsters can't love, and you do. He smiled as he pulled up next to my father's house. I smiled at him as I got out and headed to the door. Sue, open it for me, Bella. How are you, honey? I'm doing really good, Sue. I actually need to talk to Charlie and you about something. I trailed off as she nodded and led me into the living room. Belle, how are you doing? Dad asked, turning the TV volume off. I am actually doing better than ever, I said, blushing. Charlie huffed. I don't like that blush. I giggled, knowing Carlisle could hear. Dad, not like that. But you know the guy I told you about. He nodded, looking out the window at the Mercedes and scowling. Well, we talked things out, and apparently I wasn't the only one with feelings. But I want you to know that he is no longer my patient. He doesn't need to be anymore. When you meet him, I know you won't like him, but please remember that he will never hurt me. Also, I love him, Charlie. So if you want me around, you have to respect that. I finished, looking directly at my father. Sue looked like she would burst with happiness. My dad looked at me, shocked that I would take such a stand against him. I blushed once more. Charlie huffed. You love him. Does he love you? I nodded. Okay, if you love him, I will give him a chance. I smiled and all but ran from the house. I opened the front door as Carlisle opened his door. He met me halfway up the walkway. I hugged him and then led him back to the living room. Charlie's eyes went wide. Sue looked petrified. Dad, Sue, this is Carlisle Cullen, I said with a smile. Hello, Carlisle said, extending his hand. Charlie stared at him for a second before his eyes locked with my pleading ones. He took a deep breath. Police Chief Charlie Swan, he said, shaking Carlisle's hand. Sue also shook Carlisle's hand after a brief moment. Carlisle sat with me on the love seat as he explained his lifestyle to my parents. As he came to the part of only tasting human blood when he changed someone, he looked toward me, asking me silently if we should tell them. I smiled. Carlisle has changed 6 people during his existence. Their names are Edward, Esme, Jasper, Emmett, Rose, and Alice. They were all dying, and they were all in their late teens. He saved them and now they are like his children. I finished of looking toward Sue hoping she would understand. She smiled and took Charlie's hand. Sue had married my dad after my mother left when I was a child. I was 15 when they were married, but she had always been around, waiting for Charlie to get the balls to ask her out. Charlie looked about to object when Carlisle stood abruptly, almost making me fall off the couch. I looked up at him as he looked toward the back of the house. "Carlisle?" I asked, taking his hand. "The kids, they are coming toward here fast. Something has to have happened." He was stuttering, worried. I didn't wait for him to finish. By the time the last statement, I was already running out the back door. What had happened? Were they okay? Were they hurt? Carlisle was at my side in an instant. He took my hand as we waited for the kids to arrive. They came into sight about a minute after we had been standing outside. At the same time, Charlie and Sue came out of the house. The kids ran towards Carlisle and I. They were surrounding Jasper. I looked up at Carlisle, asking him silently. He nodded. I stepped forward, but Jasper hesitated. The others stood by him, though I could tell they wanted to approach me. They were all spooked. Carlisle had told me that when one struggled it was hard for them all because they all feared the weakness. "Jasper," he whimpered at his name. "Come here, sweetie. You won't hurt me. Remember, you love me." I tried to get him to think it through. Carlisle caught on because he stepped forward to stand by me. "Son, you want her to become your mother. You won't hurt her. You are incapable." Jasper whimpered as he stepped a little closer. The other stepped to make a half circle around him at the center, them behind him. I could tell they were all glittery. I opened my arms and motioned for Jasper to come to me. He was suddenly sobbing in my arms. I held him as tightly as I could. The other looked at me and him with longing. "Come here," Carlisle said, opening his arms. The girls ran to him as I motioned for the boys to join Jasper in my embrace. Carlisle was now on the ground with Alice in his lap, and Rose and Esme each under one arm. They were all quietly crying. Emmett set his head down on my shoulder as I moved Jasper to one side, so I could hug Edward too. Emmett seemed to just need to be near me. Edward was more of the hugging type. Emmett always seemed content with having those he cared for near him, other than Rose. "It's okay, boys. You're okay. Jasper, baby, show me your eyes," I whispered. He looked up at me, and I found them black but not red. "You did not kill anyone, and that is what counts. We all have our weaknesses. We are not infallible. You resisted the greatest temptation. Plus, you have your own thirst plus that of your brothers and sister. When it comes to resisting, you are the strongest." I reassured him as he calmed down. I felt Carlisle wrap his arms around me and the boys. I smiled up at him. Edward and Emmett moved back as I moved Jasper in between me and Carlisle, keeping an arm around him. Alice came over and hugged me. I kissed her hair as Rose and Esme came over too. "Everything is okay, all right?" I asked, looking at them. They all nodded. I smiled as Jasper kissed my cheek. "Thank you, Mom." I smiled, but then he froze. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. If you don't feel comfortable, Jasper," I said quietly, "I love you and your brothers and sisters very much. You kids can call me Mom, if that is what you want." He smiled sheepishly at me as he kissed my cheek again, moved over to stand by Alice. I looked up at Carlisle as he bent down to kiss me gently. "I don't know how you do it before. It would have taken days to console them." I blushed as I looked away. That's when I noticed my dad and Sue looking at all of us. "Oh, kids, this is my dad, Charlie, and my mom, Sue," I said, motioning to them. The kids smiled. "Sorry for our behavior," Edward began. "We had Esme continued. "Near misshape," Emmett added. "We don't like it," Rose went on. "When we almost," Jasper stated, emphasizing almost, "give in to temptation," Alice finished off. Charlie and Sue looked at them like if they each had 3 heads. "You'll get used to it," I said as I led everyone back into the house. Charlie's pav. As my kids came into sight, I knew that this was going to be bad. When Bella calmed the boys down so quickly, I knew that she is what we had been missing. I was only worried about what Charlie would think now. When we were all inside, the kids seemed to levitate towards me and Bella. They wanted to feel close to us right now. After an incident, I always tended to pull together in an attempt to feel some form of comfort. Bella seemed to notice because she motioned for them to sit at our feet. They complied. Emmett and Jasper rested their heads on Bella's knees, while Alice rested her back against her legs. Rose sat next to Emmett, resting against my legs. Esme sat next to her, resting her head against my knee. Edward sat next to her, smiling as I ruffled his hair. I sighed as I looked up at Charlie. He was looking at Bella, who had her hand in Jasper's hair. "Belle, these kids, you love them," he stated. She blushed at him. "Yes, Dad. I love them and they love me. They would never hurt me." He still looked confused. Edward looked up at him. We were all her patients. Carlisle took us to her because we could no longer communicate as a family. He wanted us to talk to someone. You see, Carlisle thought we hated him for changing us. Well, we thought he hated us for keeping him from finding a mate. Charlie looked at me now. You met my daughter because you wanted to help your kids. In turn, or by fate, you ended up falling in love with her. So did your kids. He sighed. Yes, I met your daughter and I had feelings for her, but kept them to myself. What actually happened is, but I was interrupted by the kids. Can we tell him? Alice said with wide eyes. I chuckled as I silently asked Isabella, who nodded and motioned for the kids to speak. Well, we each had our own sessions with Dr. Bella, and we all chose things to talk about during the group session, Alice asked. And I decided that I wanted to ask Carlisle if he liked guys, or if he was ashamed of us or something. Emmett went on with a smile. That's when Carlisle and Dr. Bella found out that half the reason why we were acting out was because we wanted a mom, Edward added. Edward even blurted it out loud. But you should have seen Carlisle's face when we asked if he was gay, Rose said, laughing. Then during all of our private sessions we all asked her if she had feelings for our dad, or wanted to be our mom, Esme said, sending me and Isabella an apologetic smile. Then wait, you never told us what really happened during Carlisle's last session. All you guys said was that you were together. Jasper finished off. I chuckled. I told her I loved someone, but I wasn't sure if they would accept me. Isabella smiled. I told him to just tell her, and then he did. I saw that he was struggling to say something, so I told him to spit it out, and he said, I love you. Then I kissed her sweetly, keeping in mind that her father was not 10 feet across from us. The kids cheered as I heard Sue giggle at their antics. Isabella joined her as we pulled apart. I looked up at Charlie, who was looking right back at me, hopeful. Do they get to call me Grandpa? He said. I smiled as Alice, Esme, and Rose jumped up to their feet. Can we? They chorused. Chapter 17. Saturday 3. Saturday, Kant. Charlie's Pav. Bella laughed, and the sound made smiles appear our boys' faces. They looked up at her with so much love that I knew everything would turn out okay. Can we? The girls chorused again. Charlie looked toward me with his eyebrows up, silently asking if they could. I looked down at Bella, who sensed my gaze and looked up at me. She smiled and nodded, once towards me, once towards her dad. He smiled back at her as he nodded towards the girls who tackled him and Sue. The boys stayed with me and Bella. I knew that even though Jasper had accepted that he had done good, his spirits would be low for a while. Edward nodded slightly towards me. This meant Emmett and Edward would stick close by, sending him reassurance and understanding. Again, Edward nodded towards me slightly. I sighed as I hugged Bella close to my side. She leaned into me as she kept her hand in Jasper's hair. Bella's Pav. I was so happy that Charlie and Sue had taken the news so well, but I noticed that Emmett and Edward along with Jasper stuck with me and Carlisle. When I heard Carlisle sigh, I knew that it probably had to do with Jasper's near mishap. I knew that Edward and especially Emmett would want to hug their new grandparents, but would not leave their brother. Edward, how about you and Emmett join the girls? Carlisle looked at me, questioning why I had suggested it. Jasper is fine here with me. He isn't going anywhere. Edward and Emmett looked at me as if asking if I was sure. I moved to sit on Carlisle's lap and motioned for Jasper to sit where I had been. He too looked confused, but did as I had suggested. I put my feet on his lap. If he moves quick enough for you guys not to catch him, he will hurt me, but he would never hurt me. So he can't move as fast. Plus he is safe here. I finished kissing Carlisle's jaw and looking back towards my father. Emmett and Jasper were still for a minute. Then they moved over to hug Sue and Charlie. After a few minutes, Alice came back to our side and sat down, resting her head against Jasper's legs. Esme followed and sat next to her. The boys also followed after a few minutes. Sue got up. You say you all have control. I nodded. None of them would hurt you, or Charlie or me or anyone, she stated, and I nodded. She looked toward Jasper, who was now seeing what she wanted to do. Hug him, he whimpered. Sue, maybe next time would be better, I said firmly but nicely. She smiled at me and nodded. Charlie looked at me surprised. You already protect them, even when you are weaker than them. You calm them, you love them, you keep them in check. He shook his head and gave Carlisle a look. You're stuck with her now, then bellowed a deep throat laugh. We all chuckled, and as Carlisle did so, I felt him move against me. I nudged him, making sure he felt it, but not hard enough to hurt myself. He noticed what was happening and discreetly moved me, so that I wasn't against him as much. Jasper started laughing harder, soon followed by Edward. Carlisle buried his face in my hair as two of his sons just laughed at who knows what. Wait, oh no, they so knew. Emmett, Rose, Esme, and Alice looked from Jasper and Edward to Carlisle. then burst out laughing. Carlisle shook his head as Charlie, Sue and I stayed serious. Well, me and Carlisle mostly. Charlie and Sue looked confused. What are we missing? Charlie asked after a few minutes. Edward laughing stopped, then doubled as Barley said, you so don't want to know Grandpa. That just made the others laugh more too. I shook my head. I think it's time we head out. The laughing stopped. Why? The kids asked pouting. Even Jasper looked a little sad. Because you all need to go hunting tonight, I stated firmly. Carlisle nodded. I already went last night, but you kids haven't been in a week. They were about to protest. No ands, ifs, or buts. Say goodbye before we leave. They all grumbled as she stood up. They said their goodbyes. Carlisle helped me up and we said our goodbyes as well. Be sure you guys come back soon, okay? Charlie said as Sue kissed the kids on the cheek. I smiled as I hugged her. Thank you for being my mom, Sue. She smiled at me and kissed my cheek too. Carlisle and I got into the car as the kids disappeared into the forest. We went back to my house when I realized tomorrow was Sunday. I don't have to work tomorrow, I said happily as Carlisle pulled into the driveway. I know. That is why I wanted to take you over to my house, if that's okay with you, Carlisle said looking nervous. Oh my, is Carlisle Cullen asking me to spend the night at his house when none of the kids are home? I asked teasing him. He nodded. I want you to see it. Okay, I whispered. He turned to lock his eyes with mine. Let me pack a bag. He nodded and helped me out of the car. He waited outside the door, giving me space to get what I needed. I got 2 changes of clothes and a nightgown that Alice insisted I wear. I put that in my toiletries into an overnight bag and went back to Carlisle. I knew what I was doing. Spending the night with him in his home would be different. I was more than fine with it. Yet I couldn't help but wonder how many women he'd been with. Charlie's Pav. When Isabella said that she would stay with me, I was so happy. Wait, would she want to make love? I mean, I have never been with anyone before, and I have always wanted to wait until marriage. Would I change that for her? Bella came back with a bag. I helped her into the car. We were both silent on the car ride to my house. When we arrived, I led us over to the couch. We had to talk about this. Isabella, I have to ask you a question, I said, looking into her eyes. She looked a little confused but responded, Carlisle, you can ask me anything, and I will respond with as much honesty as I can. I nodded. Have you ever? I huffed. I was a doctor, and I could ask her this simple question. Have you ever been with anyone? She blushed and looked down slightly as she shook her head. I put my finger under her chin and made sure she could see my eyes as I spoke. Neither have I. You see, I was born in the early 1700s. My father was a preacher. I was out hunting the very creature I am now when I got changed. I refrained from drinking, and when a mountain lion attacked me, I killed it and drank from it. That was when I realized that I could live off of animals. Since then I have never drank from humans, only the tiny amount from when I changed the kids. You see, I always wanted to be a father, but never wanted to take a life. Isabella, the first love you, and one day I will ask you to marry me. But until we are married, I would like to wait to make love to you. She had tears in her eyes. I love you, Carlisle, and I want to wait too. Think you could tell me how or why you changed the kids? I smiled at her as I pulled her into a kiss. We lost track of time because next thing I know I can hear the kids on their way back. I pulled away from my girl as I sighed, then let annoyance show on my face. The kids are on their way back. Alice probably saw me talking to you about them, and now they want to be here. My breathing was as labored as was hers. She kissed my Adam's apple as she snuggled into my chest. I purred slightly. She giggled and put her hands in my hair, massaging my scalp, so that I would continue to purr. The kids came in and looked at us, smiled, then sat around us. I think you should learn their stories in the order that they were reborn, I stated as I pulled Bella into my lap. I buried my head into her hair as she kept one hand in my hair, while the other lay on my chest. Edward smiled. That means I'm first. Carlisle changed me after my mother asked him to save me from the Spanish influenza in 1901. He changed me because he saw that my mother somehow knew he could. Then he saved me. Esm continued. It was 1921, and I had just found out that I was pregnant, but the man I was married to beat me and left me for dead. I was found by a neighbor who took me to the hospital. Carlisle found me and saved me because he knew I still had to live. Soon after they found me, Rose added, my parents had sent me to the store when some men raped me and left me on the street. Carlisle found me and thought I should have a second chance of love. The same year they found me at an insane asylum. My parents had sent me there because even as a human I had visions. Carlisle found me while filling in for another doctor. He got me out of there and changed me. They had been giving me small amounts of poison in my food, killing me. 3 years later, Rose found me after hunting. A bear had ripped me to shreds. She took me to Carlisle so that he could change me. Emmett added. I was last, but my story is a little different. I was already a vampire when Alice found me. I had just gotten ripped apart by my creator Maria. I was half burned. Carlisle put me back together and used his venom to heal me, Jasper said, looking more relaxed than I had ever seen him while talking about his experience with joining the family. As I looked at my kids, I noticed they looked sad or afraid. I looked down at Isabella. She was crying. Isabella, what is it, baby? I asked, frantic. She turned into my chest. Thank you. They all deserve to live. Thank you for giving me children, Carlisle. I held her to me as the kids whimpered. She turned to look at them and motioned for them to join us. They all crowded us as Bella kissed each one's forehead and then hugged them all close. The sight before me would be cherished forever, because in that moment I knew that I would kill to keep my family this happy for the rest of eternity. She fell asleep holding the kids to her. I was behind her, so I tried picking her up so that I could lie her down on a bed, but she held on to the kids tightly. Who knew a human could be so strong? Emmett whispered. I sighed. Come on, all of you are going to stay with us tonight. I led us all into my room and lay Bella down. I lay next to her as the girls lay next to us. The boys sat at the foot of the bed. We all lay still as Bella slept. Chapter 18. Sunday, Monday 4. Sunday. Charlie's Pav. The kids enjoyed their night, watching their mother sleep in my arms. As she began to stir, they all grew anxious, unsure of what her reaction would be when she saw all of them around her and me. Wake up, baby, I whispered as I kissed her neck. She cuddled into me, and as her face nudged my chest, her stomach pressed against me. She giggled as she finally opened her eyes and looked up at me. Sorry, I mouthed, hoping the kids wouldn't notice my morning wood. She giggled some more, and as she moved, she caught sight of the kids. Her smile became wider as she turned so that her back was pressed into mine, hiding my friend from the others. Morning, kids, she said happily. They all smiled back. Morning, Mom. I chuckled and swallowed the hiss that wanted to escape my lips as I brushed myself against me, girl. Jasper looked over at me, confused by the emotions I was having. Crap, I had to learn to control myself better. I hugged Isabella, bringing her closer into me as I lay my head above hers. Can you kids give me a human moment, please? Bella asked as tried to get up. They all nodded and left. She turned and gave me a smile and a sweet kiss on the lips before going into the adjoining bathroom. I smiled to myself as my problem left me and I got dressed. When Bella came out of the bathroom, I picked her up, delighted with the laugh she gave me. I purred for her. The kids were making her breakfast, and she was very happy to them all working so hard for her. After she had breakfast, we decided to just watch movies and relax as a family. Bella snuggled into me and soon fell asleep. Dad? Emmett whispered. I looked up from the beauty in my arms to find my kids looking at me. When are you going to ask her to become one of us? Alice continued in a whisper. What if she wants to stay human? Edward almost whimpered. The others quickly followed. I frowned. Had we not told them? I looked back down at my Isabella. Kids, I believe that tomorrow after school Bella and I will need to have a talk with you. I'm sorry we didn't have it already. I thought we had told you, but apparently we forgot to mention our conversation on the subject. I held my girl slightly tighter. The constant buzzing was calm now. It no longer was unbearable, just a constant reminder of the need to be near her. The kids looked down at my hands, but nodded. They understood that it was something both Bella and I would have to tell them. Monday. Charlie's Pav. My Isabella woke early in the morning. Our routine was much like yesterday, only earlier and quicker. The kids weren't in the room this time, so we had a little more time to make out. I chuckled as we heard them yelling at us to stop smooching and get their mom downstairs for breakfast. After we eat, I drove Isabella to work and asked her if it was okay to talk to the kids about her change after work. We haven't told them yet? She asked, thoughtful. No, I thought we had, but it seems that we forgot that the kids had left when you explained the situation to me. We never brought it up after. They are afraid that you want to stay human and will have to leave us one day. I continued. She looked up at me before getting out of the car. I will never you or them. I nodded with a smile as I kissed her. Then I left for work, hoping that the day would go by quickly. Bella's Pav. I felt horrible about forgetting to tell the kids about me change. I thought that I had told them, but when Carlisle had asked, they had already left the office. He was the only one who knew. They must be so worried I will leave them. Poor dears. They probably had been dwelling on this for a while now. I went through my appointments quickly. I took the Cullens files and put them in my purse. I wanted to ask everyone if it was okay with them to share them with Carlisle. I hope that they will allow it. We can help them better if we both know their inner feelings. I will have to make sure that Carlisle doesn't overreact at Emmett's fighting. I'm here, my love. Carlisle. I smiled at the text and closed up the office. I was ready to come clean with the kids. Charlie's Pav. I went to pick up my Isabella from work. She looked happy to be heading home with me. When we arrived at the house, the kids were waiting for us in the living room. I sighed as I pulled Isabella into my lap. I didn't like this at all. I nuzzled my face into her hair. She sighed and patted my thigh. I'm Ryder Carlyle and I am safe. I nodded and purred slightly for her. I sighed once more before looking up. The kids were looking at us. They seemed a little afraid at what was coming. So as you already know, when studying abroad in Italy, I ran into Marcus Volturi, who had just lost his wife, and I worked with him to get over her death. I learned about vampires and about the odd vegetarians that lived in Alaska, and about you guys. You already know Marcus told me everything in exchange that I help him. What you don't know is that Arrow is the one who decided that I should live. He said that one day they would come for me and I would be turned. Like I told Carlyle, I don't mind my fate. Not before I found you guys and not now. It is the way that I shall feed that scares me. But I know you will all keep me safe and stop me from feeding on humans, and I will be forever grateful. Isabella talked with confidence, but I knew that yet again she had forgotten a little detail. When will they come for you? Emmett asked. She left out a certain detail, I muttered angrily. She huffed, I have until my 27th birthday to find happiness as a human. Before I turn 28 I am to go to Italy and be turned. The kids froze. How old are you now? Edward asked. 24, she responded looking down. What do you mean by happiness? Jasper asked. If I fall in love and decided to make a life with someone, I am to call Marcus, and he is to come along with the brothers to confirm the relationship. Then they will keep tabs. If my love ever dies or leaves me, I am to be turned unless I have a child under the age of 18. She continued. I had never thought to ask about this, I should have. So what happened now that you and Carlyle are together? Asked. I am not entirely sure. Bella responded, tightening her hold on my hand. What do you mean? Rose whimpered. The deal we made implied that I would become a part of the guard when they changed me. But now that the love of my life is a vampire, I know that technically, I am allowed to stay with him until he dies or I die. But I want to become a vampire. I can't let you guys go. I can't get old while you all stay young, Isabella said. I am 26 and will forever be 26. At the moment Bella is 24. So when she turns 25 or 26, I will be the one to change her. But I am unsure of how the brothers will take the loss. I am pretty sure that she will become a very powerful shield. He already blocks Edward, I stated, nuzzling my Bella. True, but how will we know what they think if we don't make the decision to go or call them? Alice asked. We don't know, but we can hope that they brothers appreciate what I did for their brother, enough to not put any of you in danger. However, I will tell you all this right now, something happens. I will do everything I can to protect you, and that includes joining the guard for a specific amount of time, Bella stated with fur in her eyes. But I couldn't help the growl that escaped me. She would hand herself over to the Volturi to protect the family. No, I pulled her closer to me, cocooning her in my embrace. I whimpered, letting her know I didn't like the idea. She sighed and ran her hands through my hair and over my neck. Be calm, my Carlyle. I am here and I am safe. I believe it will not come to that. But I need you to know this, because if it comes to that, you have to remain with the kids and watch over them while I am away. We stayed together with the children crowding us for the rest of the evening. At night, when Bella wanted to sleep, we all headed up to my room. I lay under the covers with her back against my chest, spooning her. The children sat around us all night long. They would switch of on holding her hands in her sleep. Every time they would switch, she would whimper slightly at the loss. But it was only a couple seconds before the next child took her hands. Chapter 19. Tuesday, 4. Tuesday. Charlie's Pav. Isabella awoke early in the morning. I had once more met the rising sun with morning wood. I had not felt this way in over 250 years. Now every morning my body would react to having Isabella being near me. She ground into me as she awoke. I held her hips, still swallowing the moan that threatened to escape. The kids laughed at me and at her natural instinct. She opened her eyes confused. Why are the kids laughing? She mumbled. Because Mom, Alice began. You're grinding, Jasper went on. Into Dad, and Rose continued. He is trying, Esme giggled. Not to moan, Edward continued. And hold you still, Emmett finished as they started a new round of laughter. Bella turned a wonderful red as she turned her face to look up at me. I'm sorry, love. But she interrupted me. Carlyle, why are you sorry? Do you want me to move? She asked, and I could hear the fear of rejection in her voice. I sighed as I thought, fuck this. I pushed myself up against her backside. She bit her bottom lip. Does it feel like I want you to move away? I half growled, my voice gruff. Come on, let's leave Mom and Dad alone, Emmett said with a smile as he ushered the other out. Have fun, they all chorused. I pushed myself a bit harder against her, she meowed with pleasure. I purred for her as I held her still and strongly against me. Never believe for a second that I want you to be unnecessarily away from me. The way you make me feel is amazing, and I can't wait for the day when I finally get to make love to you. But I wanted to apologize because it is ungentlemanly to let a woman feel such reaction to her body. I love feeling you against me, Carlisle, she said as she tried to move back into me more, but I held her still. My love, over 250 years ago my body stopped reacting to the early morning stimulation. Now, after having you in my arms, it has become routine. I love having you with me, and I know that we decided to wait until marriage to make love, and I will wait for that faithfully. But until then, just feeling you against me makes me feel so satisfied, I said, purring as I rubbed against her gently. I kissed her and carried her to the restroom, so she could have her human moment. She kissed me with a euphoric smile on her face. I knew I probably had a similar smile, and that made me feel even better. We went downstairs together, and the kids smiled at us as they gave their mother breakfast. I held her in my lap with my still prominent erection, nuzzling her neck while she ate. The kids were all giddy at our affection. She smiled as she finished eating, but it faded quickly. I need to get to work, she whispered with tears in her eyes. I pulled closer into my chest. It's okay, love. I will take you to work and the kids will go to school. Then after I drop you off, I'll head over to work. After the kids are done with class for the day, they will return home and wait for us. When I'm done with work, I will go by and pick you up. Then we will go to your house and get you some clothes. Then we can come home to our children who will have fed by the time we arrive. She looked at me with tears still in her eyes. But I'm going to miss all of you so much. I chuckled. I know, baby, we all will miss you too. But please, baby, we have to keep living our lives, I said as I rubbed her back. She nodded before getting up and hugging each of the kids and kissing their foreheads, promising to come home later. I smiled at the sight. Even after only a few days, she was already so protective of the kids. She could calm them and already wanted to have them with her forever. Through all of that, I could see she loved me dearly. I couldn't wait to get the time to go to my storage unit. Bella's POV. After Carlisle dropped me off at work, I was very distracted. Lee asked me if I was alright, and all I could do was nod and turn away. Something didn't feel right. Something was going to happen and there was nothing I could do to stop it. But my family was in danger. That I knew. I called the hospital and asked for Carlisle. Dr. Cullen speaking. Carlisle, it's Bella. Isabella, what is it? Something is wrong, I can feel it. Please try and get to work. Then come pick me up. We need to get the kids. Isabella, are you sure? He sounded so confused. Please, honey. I know that they aren't truly mine yet, but I know the kids will need us. Something bad is going to happen, Carlisle. I just know it, please. I was crying now because I had to. The feeling was getting stronger and worse. I will be there in 5 minutes, my love. Please be calm. I will get there as fast as I can. I waited and sure enough, in 5 minutes flat, Carlisle was walking into my office with Lee close behind. I ran into his arms as he hugged me and whispered reassuring words into my ear. Lee looked stunned but moved out of the room. I clung to Carlisle as he calmed me down. We need to go now so we can get the kids, he whispered as he cradled my face. I nodded as he wiped my tear. We need to hurry, I whispered back as he got me my coat, and I called to Lee to cancel everything until Thursday. Charlie's POV. When I got to Isabella's office, I walked straight to her office, ignoring her receptionist as she told me I had to have an appointment. I pulled her into my arms as she ran to me. After she calmed down, we left. I opened her door and ran around the car to the driver's side. I floored the gas and didn't give a damn about anything. Isabella felt that our family was threatened. My gut told me she was right, and my heart and soul told me that the finally member of our family had been found. I pulled into the school parking lot, and as I parked the car, Isabella ran from the car. I followed quickly and opened the door to the office. She walked in and took my hand, pulling me in behind her. Hello, I need to take my kids home, I told the receptionist. She looked at me and then at Bella. She scowled as she handed me the sign-out forms, which I filled quickly, and she called the teachers that had my kids with them. As she started dialing the first number, we heard the chant that every parent, policemen, and school staff hates. Fight, fight, fight. I looked at Bella and grabbed her hand as we ran out to the courtyard. Emmett, Jasper, and Edward were facing Mike Newton, Tyler Crowley, and Eric Yorkie circling each other. I saw 3 male teachers come out of their classrooms as the bell rang, and the rest of the school came out to look at the fight. Rose, Esme, and Alice came over to us. We're sorry we tried to stop them, but Emmett Rose began. He just lost it and the guys weren't about to let him fight 3 guys at a time no matter what. Esme continued. Dad, Bella, you guys have to stop them or they will send those 3 to the hospital, Alice added seriously and slightly hysterical. I looked at Bella, and we both knew what we had to do. Mike, Tyler, and Eric suddenly pulled out knives, and I knew we had to stop this now. Everyone screamed and backed away. I motioned for the girls to do the same. The 3 male teachers locked eyes with me, and I motioned to the 3 with knives. They nodded, and as they moved forward, Bella and I moved to be in front of Emmett, Edward, and Jasper. Boys, you need to calm down. I said sternly as I stood at my full height. Hell no, they asked for it, Dad, Emmett yelled back. Emmett, fighting won't resolve anything. You know this. Let it go and blow off steam another way, Bella said calmly from beside me. Edward backed down, slouching. Whatever, there are too many variables now anyways. Jasper shrugged but also backed down. Emmett stayed ready. As Bella stepped forward, I moved with her. Emmett finally turned to look at us. Let it go, Bella whispered. He huffed before relaxing his muscles and glaring at the 3 boys who had been restrained. Come on, I told the boys as I motioned for them to follow me. The girls went to Bella. She soothed them and assured them everything would turn out fine. I lead my boys to the principal's office. Mr. Adams looked surprised as I sat my boys down in front of him. Hello, Mr. Adams. I'm sorry for my son's behavior. If you could please allow me to take them with me. Now, I would really appreciate it. Please be assured that whatever punishment you decide appropriate will be executed. Hello, Dr. Cullen. You can take your kids with you. I understand you were here to pick them up when the ruckus started. He responded as he looked over the boys' records. They will have to be suspended for 2 days, or serve 5 days of 2-hour detentions after school. I looked at the boys, who smiled at the thought of suspension. They choose detention, I said firmly. The 3 turned to look at me, and I could see it, they felt betrayed. The principal looked surprised but nodded. I motioned for the boys to follow me out once more. Bella and the girls were in the waiting room. I handed Bella the keys to the Mercedes I drove to work, and then held out my hand for the keys to the Jeep. Emmett sighed before handing them over. Bella nodded as I lead the girls out. She was going to take the boys back to her office, and they were going to talk this out. Chapter 20. Tuesday, 4 continued. Tuesday. Charlie's POV. The girls were confused and also pissed at me. Why did you choose detention, Carlisle? Esme asked. Because they need to learn to control their temper. I replied calmly. Yeah, but you don't even know why they were going to fight in the first place, Rose exclaimed. I sighed. How about we join the boys and Bella after she is done with them, so you can all yell at me for the betrayal you feel. Yes, I chose the harsher punishment, but that is part of being a parent, and I'm sorry if I can't be a cool dad all the time. You are all at least 60 and you all know better than this. I was losing it too. Just go on your hunt, Alice spat as she headed up the stairs. Bella's POV. The boys were less than happy to let me drive, but kept their mouths shut. I unlocked the building and led them into the office. Please sit down, I said as I walked around my desk. They all looked toward the recreation room as they sat glumly in their chairs. I sighed. Someone want to explain why you 3 got into the situation you did today? Because last I remember none of you like fighting. Emmett may use it to clear his mind, but he has found a new way to do so. Edward shared a look with each of his brothers before he and Jasper looked at Emmett. They said some stuff that made us angry. We told them to shut their pie hole. And when they didn't, we had to get physical, Emmett stated. What stuff did they say? I asked. None of them spoke, Emmett? He looked away from me, Edward. He grunted, looking back at the recreation room. Jasper? He shrugged, looking down at his shoes. I sighed. Carlisle is not happy right now, and neither am I said as they turned to look at me. However, you must know we aren't necessarily mad, more disappointed than anything. They stayed quiet as I stood and turned to look out the window. I felt the tears in my eyes. Had we failed them? Had I failed them? I heard the boys whimper behind me. I whipped away my tears. I'm fine, boys. No, you aren't. You feel guilty, Jasper stated. I thought we had made progress, I said quietly. You did. You made us a family, Edward added. But you boys still got in yet another fight, I said, turning to look at them again. We did it because we got pissed off, okay? Emmett exclaimed. Pissed off so much that you would do exactly what I asked you not to, I exclaimed, becoming frustrated. They were calling you a skank, a whore, a cunt, you name it. We could not let them call our mom that. They may not know you are our mom yet, but to us you are. We protect family, physically and also their image. Emmett fired back. I stared at them as I fell into my chair. You were defending me, but why would they? Edward sighed. They saw you with Carlisle this morning and yesterday morning too. I sighed and let my head fall into my hands. They had almost gotten into a knife fight because they were protecting my image, my honor. I need Carlisle. I picked up my phone and dialed quickly. Charlie's Pav. I had just returned from hunting when my cell phone rang. I answered quickly, seeing that it was Isabella. Yes, my love? You need to get down here with the girls. I need you, Carlisle, she said. Girls, we have to go, come on, I said as I heard the click ending the call. They looked concerned as I sped down the road, carelessly. When we arrived at the office, I ran inside as they followed quietly and still wondering what was going on. Bella was slumped in her chair, her head in her hands. The boys were whimpering as they sat in front of her. Their mates went to them as I went to mine. Isabella? She looked up at me as tears began to fall. I held her to me as the kids all whimpered. What is it, my love? I asked as I moved her into my lap and took her seat. Why Carlisle? She pleaded to me. I was very confused. Isabella, my love, please explain to me why you are in tears. She held on to me. Carlisle, after not even a week of us being together, they are already protecting me. Now, I was even more confused, but I let her continue. What are we going to do when we have to leave? Carlisle, I can't do this to them. We have to make it official that we are together or people will think like those kids were. Now, I had to interrupt because I was too confused to think straight. My love, please calm down. We will sort this out together. I kissed her forehead as I looked up at the kids. Boys, can you explain what happened here before we arrived? The three explained everything word by word. I growled at the words my Isabella had been called, and then I looked over at her, understanding what she meant. We will get this sorted, my love. Just give me a day or two, all right? She nodded as she turned to look at the boys. Boys, thank you for standing up for me, and I am so very sorry we put you in that situation. But you have to work on your temper. You need to control it no matter what is said. She talked calmly. They nodded. Do we need to address anything else? I sighed. Yes, we do. I lost my temper as well with the girls. Bella spun her head to look at me. What? She was not too happy about it. I explained what happened and the girls explained their part and feelings. All our kids felt betrayed. Bella sighed as she closed her eyes. She took a deep breath before opening them again. Kids, there will be times when Carlisle and I will not seem very nice. It is a part of parenthood. You have not experienced this before because until a few years ago you did not act out as regular teenagers do. I agree with Carlisle that detention is the proper punishment for the fighting, but I understand where Rose was coming from when she said what she did. But you boys will serve these detentions, and if those three boys, Mike, Tyler, and Eric Jasper said, if they say anything else, you ignore them. You walk away and call me or Carlisle if needed. She said, looking at the kids. They all nodded. Carlisle, you also need to learn to control your temper. As a vampire with a new mate, your instinct to protect is high, but you need to remember to keep your cool. Your behavior at the school was questionable but not completely irrational. But lashing out at the girls, she shook her head. Please, Carlisle, you have to be an example to the kids. Lashing out at them is more than questionable. It is downright outrageous. You will not yell at them for protecting their mates. As the kids looked at her in wonder, I looked at her in awe. She continued, from now on, any and every disagreement will be sorted out during a family session. If anyone continues to have temper control issues, then I will set up a program for you to follow. She turned to look at the kids. We need to make a recreation room at the house, so that you kids can work through your problems. You cannot use the one here because you are not my patients. You are my children. What I said before stands. I am disappointed that you boys would turn to violence, but I understand why you did it. They whimpered as she stood up. Come on everyone, I think we should go home. She held out her hand for me to take. I'm sorry, I whispered to her, but she shook her head motioning to the kids. I nodded, and she kissed me chastely, as the kids rode in the Jeep and she and I took the Mercedes. We arrived at the house only to find a police cruiser in the driveway. I sighed as Isabella and I walked up to him. Carlisle, he greeted as he shook my hand before hugging his daughter. Hey honey. Hi dad, she said as she stepped back to stand by me. The kids came over slowly. Charlie looked at me, then at the kids. I got reports from several of my deputies about a Mercedes and Jeep seen driving at dangerously high speeds. Kids, go for a hunt. You need it, Isabella said from my side. They were about to protest, but I intervened. Please kids. They whimpered but went without further prodding. I will pay whatever tickets you find necessary, I stated tiredly as I looked back at Charlie. Charlie looked confused. For you to be suddenly so careless, something must have happened. Bella looked away from him as she stepped around him into the house. She didn't want to hash this out again. I wanted to go to her and make her feel better, but I knew that at the moment she just needed a little space. I sighed. Some kids from the high school saw Isabella and me. They said some offensive words about Isabella and the boys. got the best of them. Isabella had a bad feeling and called me from her office. She and I went to the school only to find them about to fight. The three boys they were up against were Mike, Tyler, and Eric, and they pulled out knives. Charlie was fuming. Isabella feels like this is our fault. If we made our relationship more public, the children would not be put in these situations. I have asked her for a few days because I wish to speak with you. I want to marry your daughter, Charlie. I love her and I will always love her. She is already the mother of my children, and I want it to be official. Current events have made me want to speed things up, but I don't mind, I stated, looking straight at him. He nodded. Well, you were unavailable all day because of a family emergency, so I guess the Jeep and Mercedes that were seen were from tourists. He smirked as I gave him a smile. I would love for you to marry my little girl. I still don't like that you are a vampire, or that she has to become one, but I can see you love her. I smiled. I have a ring that I need to get. It belonged to my mother. He looked shocked. It is from the late 1600s. Do I want to know how old you are? Charlie asked. I am over 300 years old, I said quietly. He nodded before going inside. Go get my baby girl her ring. I'll talk to her. I smiled as I ran to the Mercedes and took off toward Seattle. Chapter 21. Wednesday, 4. Wednesday. Charlie's POV. It took me the entire night to get my mother's ring for Isabella. When I returned to the house, she was asleep. Charlie was waiting for me to let me know that she calmed down some. After my love awoke, I took her to work and then went to the hospital. I wanted everything to be perfect for tomorrow. The kids all wanted to help and I was more than happy to involve them. Bella's POV. This morning Carlisle seemed to be somewhere else. Lee didn't ask questions about yesterday. Thankfully, after work Carlisle picked me up and we met the kids at the house. We were going to Seattle in order to buy a family car that would fit all 8 of us. Charlie's POV. Isabella and I got to the car dealer, and immediately I saw a shiny black Escalade S 2011. It would be perfect. I could drive. Isabella would have shotgun, of course. Then 3 kids in the back seats and 3 kids in the middle seats. For humans it would be a snug fit, but for us it would be perfect. I smiled as I pulled Isabella towards it. I showed her the car they had on display before calling over a sales agent to order an Escalade S Platinum Edition in black raven with leather seating. Isabella was happy that it would only take a week to be delivered. We went over to Charlie's where the kids were already beginning to cook. Charlie and Sue were laughing at Emmett, who had been trying to turn on the grill for a few hours now. I began chuckling as I helped Isabella out of the car. She began walking towards the backyard looking at me confused. Mom, make them stop laughing at me, Emmett exclaimed, pouting at my Isabella. Bella looked at Emmett, then at the other kids, Sue and her father. Dad, how about you stop humiliating my son and turn on the grill yourself? She asked pointedly. I stopped laughing knowing she would not approve. Charlie grumbled, all right, take away all the fun. Isabella giggled as she hugged Emmett and kissed his forehead. The other kids quickly made a line behind him. She giggled as she repeated the action for each one. I winked at Sue as I joined the end of the line. Isabella giggled when she saw me and kissed my lips chastely. After an hour of grilling and a few more tantrums and a lot more laughs, Charlie, Sue and Isabella eat while I explain the new car and when it would arrive. They all loved the idea of the family car. Rose said she could have it ready a few days after it arrived. What do you mean have it ready? Charlie asked as he got a soda from the refrigerator. I fix all the cars we get so that they can drive faster. You know, a few modifications. Rose responded. Will Bella be driving these modified cars? He continued. Charlie, Sue chastised. I chuckled. Don't worry, Charlie, as far as I'm concerned, Isabella will never have to be behind the wheel again. But if needed, the cars can be driven at regular speeds. Also, we reinforce them to make them safer. Isabella smiled up at me as she finished eating. I took her plate, and the girls took Sue's and Charlie's before they began cleaning up. Charlie and Sue were happy that Isabella was happy. That's all they wanted. We left their house at round 8, and we all headed back to the house. My Isabella went to sleep, and then the kids asked me what they were going to do tomorrow. I smiled at them. You will go to school as always. Friday is a holiday, so we will see if Isabella wants to move in. She isn't working until Monday. I will take her out to the meadow we found while hunting last year. You kids can prepare it according to Alice's visions. You know the rest from there. They nodded and left me and my Isabella alone for the rest of the night. Chapter 22. Thursday, 4. Thursday. Charlie's POV. I was nervous as hell, but I hid it well. I drove Isabella to work in the morning and then went to the hospital. I talked to my supervisor about getting Friday off and he told me it was fine. I was done with my shift at 2, so I headed over to the house to change. I stopped by her house and packed a bag with some formal clothes for Isabella. I went by to say hi to Sue and pick up the food she was making for Isabella. She smiled at me and gave me a warm hug. "Knock her off her feet," she whispered as I walked out the door. I drove to Isabella's office and waited until 4 when her final patient left. I walked in and told Lee to give Isabella the bag with clothes. She smiled and nodded before going back to take it to her. After, Lee left to give Isabella and I some privacy. When Bella came out of her office, she looked like a vision. The dress I had brought her was simply a little black dress that had a halter top and had almost no back. It dropped down to her upper thighs, hugging her slim form. "How the heck do you expect me to walk in these shoes?" she asked as she came over to me. I smiled at her. "Isabella, I would never let you fall. Please wear them," I say as I pout. She smiles as she looked into my eyes. "Fine, you put these death traps on me then." She pouts back. I smile as I take the 6-inch platform heels from her and slip onto my knees in front of her. I slip them onto her bare feet, kissing her feet before getting up. I notice her face is beet red. I smile as I offer her my arm. She placed her hand on the inside of my forearm, and I lead her out to the car. Bella's Pav. When Carlisle showed up with the beautiful little black dress and the 6-inch heels, I knew he was going to make the night special. He led me to the car, and though I had no idea where we were going, I felt safe, and for once I didn't care about getting a surprise, because it was going to be from him. I was still a little upset or disappointed about what happened yesterday, but Carlisle asked me to give him a little bit of time, so I will. I knew that the boys were protecting me, but they shouldn't have gone to violence. After about an hour of driving, we came to the end of the road. I was confused, but I knew Carlisle would not let anything happen to me. He came to my door and picked me up bridal style. "Is it all right if I jog slightly?" Carlisle asked tenderly. "Baby, you can take all the time you want, as long as you keep me in your arms," I replied, leaning into him. He chuckled as he began to jog at human pace. If it hadn't been for the forest moving around us, I would not have noticed. We stopped after about 10 minutes, and he set me on my feet. I clung to him as my head spun slightly. He put his arm around my waist to hold me steady. I giggled as I took his arm again. He chuckled but held me close to him and began walking in the direction we were currently facing. He never let me fall, even thought I stumbled quite often. Suddenly we were in a beautiful clearing that was adorned with candles everywhere. Soon I realized that there was a table with 2 seats in the center of the clearing. Charlie's Pav. Her entire face lit up as she saw the clearing. The kids had set up candles around the perimeter and hung some from frieze. The table in the center of the clearing had a single flower in the center. I lead my Isabella to the table and pulled out her chair. Music began to play. She turned to find that Edward had moved a piano into the clearing. Esme and Alice came into the meadow, placing a goblet of blood in front of me and a goblet of champagne for Isabella on the table. Rose brought out her meal. They all left, leaving Edward to play with his back turned toward us. Isabella smiled as she ate peacefully. When she finished, all the kids came back into the meadow. Rose and Esme helped Edward move the piano so they could face us. Emmett and Jasper each carried a small box. I took Jasper's first. "My lovely Isabella, this past week you have spent most of your time in our home. I can no longer imagine it without you." I lifted the box and took out the keys to the Cullen home in Forks. "Mom, Alice, Will, Esme, you, Rose. Move Jasper in. Edward, please." Emmett finished. She had tears in her eyes as she nodded her head. "I would love to move into the Cullen home." I pulled her into a passionate kiss, before taking a deep breath and motioning to Alice to begin. "Mom, you have made me find myself and made me realize how much I am loved," Alice said, kissing her mother's cheek. "Mom, you showed us that by talking we can solve any problem," Esme said, hugging Isabella. "Mom, you made us a family again," Rose added. "Mom, you made our dad carefree and became his reason to live," Jasper continued as her kissed his mother softly. "You made the family listen for the first time," Edward said as he kissed his mother before beginning to play again. "You gave us a mother," Emmett said as he hugged her and curled into her embrace. "Isabella, you already agreed to join us forever in our world. Will you join the family permanently?" I went down on one knee. "Will you marry me and be a wife and mother?" I added. Tears were running freely down her face. She nodded as she smiled a mile wide. I slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her flesh against me. I kissed her lips until she had to breathe. Then I moved to her neck and shoulders. I kissed her face. I nibbled her ears and then went back to her lips. I was purring loudly and continuously. I finally pulled back from her as I heard the calls from our children. I dried my love's face from her dried tears, and I pulled her back into my chest, wrapping my arms around her waist. We faced our children. They smiled as they hugged us. After a long time, the kids began to clean up, and I carried my Isabella back to the car. When we arrived at the house, she was already asleep, so I carried her upstairs and laid down with her in my arms. Chapter 23. Friday. 4. Friday. Charlie's Pav. I kissed her hair every few minutes. It felt wonderful to be near her. It felt magnificent to hold her in my arms. At some point I had ended up spooning her again. Her body against me felt glorious. I purred whenever she stirred, lulling her back to sleep. The kids had returned by early morning and were now deciding on what to make for breakfast for their mother. The kids were happy, I was happy, and my Isabella was happy. I purred louder now, letting her feel the vibrations from my chest on her back. She stirred and pushed back into my body. I growled lightly before nuzzling her neck. Isabella, my love, it is time to wake up. She looked over her shoulder at me. 5 more minutes? I chuckled. Sorry love, the kids have already started on your breakfast. Also, I want to get you moved in. Unless you want to wait, I'll understand if that is what you want. I was stuttering and muttering now. She turned into my chest and hugged me to her. Carlisle, I said I would move in even before you asked to marry me. I don't think I could sleep without being in your arms anymore. You calm me and you protect me. I love you, Carlisle. I want to be with you forever. I want to start my forever now, even if I wait for immortality. I purred as she peppered my bare chest with kisses. Then you will be moved in by tonight, my love. She smiled into my chest as she hugged herself to me. I wrapped my arms around her and held her tightly. I need a human moment, she muttered. I chuckled as I helped her up, but I couldn't help but groan as I saw that her dress from last night had ridden up. It was now barely covering her bottom. I could see her black panties. She turned towards me at the sound of my groan. She blushed as she saw where my gaze was. She pulled down her dress and I was beside her in an instant. Don't be embarrassed, love. I love seeing you. I nuzzled into her neck and purred for her. She giggled as she ran her hands through my hair. Thank you. It's just I have never been in a relationship like this before, she murmured. What do you mean, love? I asked, confused. I had never slept over at a boyfriend's house before. I had never gotten compliments like you give me, she said, looking at her toes. I moved to stand in front of her. Love, that is probably because you were waiting for me. I kissed her sensually and tenderly, pouring my love into her. She moaned into my mouth, and I pressed her body to me. She gasped as she felt me. Feel what you do to me, love. Feel what you make me feel. Yes, she sighed, pushing her body into me. I purred loudly. Love, we must wait. She nodded. I know. She pushed against again. When can we get married? Her eyes were closed, and she had her face hidden in the crook of my neck. She was brushing her stomach against me. I stopped her by putting my hands on her hips. As soon as you want. Just say when, baby. She nodded into my neck. She kissed my jaw as she sighed and moved towards the restroom. I smiled as I changed my clothes and made the bed. When Isabella came out of the bathroom, she looked refreshed. She had changed into cargo pants and a tank top. I smiled as I picked her up into my arms. I carried her downstairs for breakfast and sat her in my lap while she ate. Bella's Pav. I wanted to be married already. Feeling Carlisle's hard member against my stomach felt wonderful. I couldn't help but try to imagine what it would be like when he made me his. I loved being wrapped up in his arms, his cold chest pressed into my back. Now we just have to tell Charlie. Oh, I hope he doesn't freak out. Maybe we can get married once the kids finish the school year. Winter break is coming up, so we could get a good start on planning. Maybe late June or early July. What are you thinking about, Mom? Jasper said, waking me from my thoughts. I blushed as I hid in Carlisle's chest. Mom? Emmett asked, sounding curious. I sighed. I was thinking about when we could get married, maybe late June or early July, after you finish off the school year. And I was thinking that we could get a good jump start on the planning during your winter break. Mom, are you telling me you are giving us only 6.5 months to plan the biggest, most wonderful wedding of the century? Alice screeched. I flinched at the pitch of her voice. So did all the others. Alice, Carlisle chastised while rubbing my back. I looked up at him. Is that too soon for you? He shook his head. No. I would prefer sooner, but we need time to plan, and it will be easier to get away for a long honeymoon if the kids are out of school. I blushed at the thought of a long honeymoon. He purred for me and nuzzled into my neck. I tilted my head to give him better access. He purred louder and kissed along my neck and ear. Okay, I know I was the one who said we should be a little more understanding and stuff, but I really don't need to see you two getting it on in the kitchen, Jasper exclaimed. I blushed as I snuggled into Carlisle's arms. Alice, better make it early June, Carlisle said and quickly continued before Alice could protest, and be happy we give you so much time. Please keep in mind we can and will veto anything we don't like. Isabella will pick whatever dress she prefers, and you will not be difficult. Boys, you will help in whatever Isabella asks or I need. Rose and and same rules apply to you as Alice. I do not want any of you kids badgering Isabella with anything. She will have enough on her plate, and I expect all of you to help take as much of it as you can. What about you though? Edward asked. I will be by her side constantly, relaxing her and being with her and making her happy. He kissed me after each sentence. And of course I will help in the decision making too. I giggled as I turned to face Carlisle. I love you, Carlisle. He chuckled as he pulled me close. I love you too, baby. Then he kissed me again, slowly and lovingly. I moaned as he pressed my body into his. He was hard again. I pressed down onto him and he purred into my mouth. Charlie's pav. The kids had to know this was our wedding, but they also need to know that they are expected to help out as much as they can. As Isabella giggled, she turned to face me, but I think she forgot to notice that she was now straddling me in the middle of the kitchen. But none of that mattered as I kissed her. She moaned as I pulled her closer to me. I could feel myself harden at her closeness. She pressed down on me, causing a magnificent friction. I purred into her mouth and moved, so that my hard member was pressed against her more firmly. She pulled back, needing to breath. I continued kissing her neck, her cheeks, her jaw, and her ears, anywhere I could reach. She moaned again as I pulled her back to kiss her lips. Then as we were getting on a roll, I heard many throats being cleared. I pulled back from Isabella, only to pull her into my chest and rest my chin on her head. Our breathing was labored, and I could smell her arousal. I twitched in my pants, and from the tiny moan I hear from Isabella, the first knew she felt it. The kids were looking at us, their faces mixed with horror and amusement. Once I evened my breathing, I raised an eyebrow at them. Emmett coughed, or faked a cough before answering. We thought it may be a good idea for you guys to head over to Grandpa's and talk about Mom moving in, while we get her stuff packed and moved in here. Isabella nodded into my chest as she still worked on calming her breathing. Thanks, sounds good, I said as I turned my face into my love's hair. Are you sure on June? She nodded once more, but this time she added a giggle. I hissed, don't move, baby. Why? She asked, confused. Because your giggling is making you move against me, making my not so little situation a lot harder, I said as I kissed her forehead. She giggled more as she moved back from my body. She looked down at our position and she blushed. What must the kids think? She was close to tears. Baby, don't cry. Please, I got you. Talk to me, Isabella, I said as I hugged her. Carlisle, I attacked you. In the middle of the kitchen, no less. She was flustered and panicking. Isabella, please calm down. They found it amusing. They were a little confused and disgusted by the fact that we are acting like lovesick teenagers in heat, and we are their parents. Think about it. Were you not happy when Charlie found Sue? I was happy for them both, she responded. Right now imagine you watching them do what we were just doing. They will have to get used to it because I love you very much, and I will hold and touch you whenever I can, especially until we get married and for a few months after that. I love touching you and holding you and kissing you. They will need to get used to us showing our love for each other. I kissed her once more as I lifted her up onto her own feet. She fixed her shirt as I fixed mine and adjusted myself, so that the bulge in my pants was less noticeable. She smiled at me as we headed over to her father's to inform him about our engagement and her change of address. Chapter 24. Friday for Kant. Friday Kant. Charlie's pav. Charlie looked happy for us and told us that he was glad that we were going to be together. Sue said that she knew that Bella would make a wonderful mother. Charlie kept fidgeting, but he wouldn't say what was bothering him. Bella's pav. When we arrived at my dad's, I saw that both his eyes and Sue's were slightly puffy. They had been crying. Both said they were happy for us, but my dad looked like he wanted to talk to us about something, but he wouldn't say anything. Daddy, just tell us whatever you have on your mind, I said after he had been fidgeting for a few minutes. He took a deep breath. I have been waiting on some test results from the hospital. I looked up at Carlisle, who looked confused. I went to Seattle to make sure I didn't run into you. Sue hugged him tightly. I got the results over the phone today. Bella, I only have 2 months to live. Charlie's pav. Bella, I only have 2 months to live. Charlie choked out, looking at his daughter. Isabella tense in my arms. No, 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 no. This isn't funny, Charlie. She was slightly hysterical. I know, honey, but it is the truth, Charlie said, looking towards me for help. Baby, I pulled Isabella into my lap. She was shaking her head frantically. Baby, breath with me just like that. Sweetheart, be calm, my love, be calm. She was still crying, but she was no longer in hysterics. I rocked her gently as she let her tears run out. Once she was only sniffling, I looked up at Charlie. What do you have? I have a brain tumor, inoperable. He responded, it is growing pretty fast. I nodded. Even I could not take care of something like that. Have you ever thought about joining the immortal life? I continued. He nodded with a small smile. Yes, I thought about it. But when my time comes, Bella said from my chest, and Charlie nodded. Okay, then I will call the kids and we will move up the wedding. You will walk your daughter down the aisle, I said, holding Bella a little lighter. She looked up at me. You would do that? Of course, my love, I know how important it is to you to have your father with you. If he said he only had a week, I would find a way to do it, baby. I would do anything for you, I responded, looking into her once more tear-filled eyes. Time skip. After talking to Charlie and Sue about the new situation, we went back home. All the kids were in the living room, smiling happily. We finished unpacking everything. We even used a spare room for an office, Emmett exclaimed. Thank you, kids, Isabella said, still sounding sad. They all looked at me, confused at her reaction. I sighed, sitting down and pulling Isabella into my lap. The wedding is being moved up to next month. We just received some news that you all need to hear. You could all take a seat, I said, as Bella burrowed into my chest. I rubbed her back comfortingly while the kids looked on. Charlie, your grandfather has 2 months to live. He has a brain tumor that is inoperable and growing, and at a steady rate. The kids froze and immediately settled their gaze on their mother. Silence followed for about 5 minutes before they all snapped out of it. I'll look for a location, Rose said. I'll start making a list of guests, Edward added. I'll work on decorations, Esme continued. I'll work on entertainment, Emmett said. I'll get the wardrobe sorted out and look for possible dresses for Mom, Alice said. I'll work on food for the humans and anything else that is needed, Jasper finished off. Bella mumbled into my chest, thank you, Carlisle. Can you take us up to our room? I need you to hold me, Carlisle. I just need you to hold me. She was crying again. The kids got to work as I carried their mother upstairs to her room. I lay with her throughout the night and held her while she cried. If someone had told me 2.5 weeks ago that the Charlie, the big 6-foot man with muscles of a teenage athlete, would be dying in 2, maybe 3 months, I would have called you crazy. Now I would call you cruel. Isabella did not sleep all night, and I never lessened my hold on her. When she kissed me needing comfort, I would give it to her. When her cries would render her a blubbering mess, I would whisper loving words into her ear. I would lightly pepper her with kisses. Through the night I gave my girl what she needed, and through the night the kids worked so that their mother wouldn't have to. They were hurting too because they had just gotten a grandfather, and now he was being taken away. But they all saw the pain their mother was in, and knew that they needed to be strong for her, at least for now. Chapter 25. Saturday. 4. Saturday. Charlie's POV. Isabella remained in bed until a little after noon. I stayed with her and continued to comfort her. The kids had about half the wedding ready. I was so proud of them. Isabella, my love, you need to get up now. We have much to do and you need to eat, I whispered into her ear. She looked up at me, her expression blank. It broke my heart to see her so broken, so empty. I rocked her gently before picking her up and carrying her to the restroom. I started the water and dropped a little bit of bubble mix into it. I plugged the drain and then turned back to my Isabella. Would you like me to do this or want me to call in the girls? I heard the others stop moving downstairs. I knew that Isabella understood what I was asking. She looked up into my eyes from her spot on the counter. Take care of me, Carlisle. I don't think I could bear to be away from you right now. I know you will take care of me with all the love in the world. She sounded so monotone, so dead. I heard the others gasp at the sound of their mother's voice. I hugged my Isabella before taking off her clothes, keeping my eyes locked with hers. Once she was just in her panties, I removed all of my clothes, keeping my eyes locked with hers. I left my boxers on and lifted her into my arms. I removed her panties gently, and then I set her down in the tub. I turned off the water and got her sponge from its place on the hanger. I put her body wash on it and began to wash her gently. She set her hands on my shoulders and leaned into me. I purred for her, trying to reassure her. After washing her body, I washed her hair gently, scrubbing the shampoo into her scalp. Before massaging her head and shoulders, I moved to her back and then her hands and legs. I unplugged the tub and stepped into it with her. I held her up as I turned on the shower head and rinsed of the remaining soap and shampoo from her body. I stepped out of the water with her in my arms and wrapped her in a fluffy towel. I will sit in my nude and wait for you. Please don't make me be away from you, Carlisle, she said as tears filled her eyes. I kissed her gently as I set her on the counter. I took off my boxers and got into the shower. It took me less than a minute to shower. I wrapped a towel around my waist and then dried off my Isabella. I dressed her in comfortable yoga pants, and when I went to put her shirt on she shook her head. Yours, she whispered. I nodded and I grabbed one of my shirts and put it on her. She looked at me and waited until I was dried and dressed. I picked her up in my arms once more, and slowly began to take her downstairs. She lay in my arms with her hands around my neck, her head resting on my shoulder lifeless. The kids made her a small breakfast which they placed on front of us as I sat with her in my lap. I motioned for them to leave the room. They did not need to see their mother this way. They left confused, but resigned. I fed her, and when food would dribble from her mouth, I would clean her chin with a napkin. When she ate what she could, I took her back upstairs and whispered at vampire speed to the kids, clean up the kitchen, then head out for a hunt. Don't argue. Just go, please. They grumbled slightly, but cleaned the kitchen and left. Bella's pav. I knew that I was hurting the kids and Carlisle, but I felt dead inside. I wanted to die. Carlisle was patient with me, holding me while I cried, giving me my needed comfort, bathing me, feeding me, cleaning my face as I dribbled food as if I were a toddler. I was glad that he kept the kids from seeing me much, only when they gave us my breakfast, but before and after that he made sure to keep them from me, so that they didn't see me so broken. Charlie's pav. I held her for a couple more hours before I knew that I needed to break her from her funk. Isabella, my love, you need to calm down. If you need Jasper and the kids for this, then it's fine, but you need to stop this. It kills me to see you in such pain. You have less time than you anticipated, and I know you are hurting. But baby, the kids need you. They have been strong and have about half the wedding ready, but honey, they have no idea what to do with themselves. They are in pain too, not so much because they found out they are going to lose their grandfather. You see, my love, they are used to losing those they care for. But the majority of their pain comes from knowing how this is and will hurt you. I spoke lovingly and calmly, but I did not know how much longer I could keep it up. She looked up at me. I'm hurting you too, huh? I nodded, not wanting to make her feel guilty, but also not wanting to lie. She snuggled into my side. Call the kids in here when they get back. She closed her eyes and fell asleep shortly after. The kids came back and I called them up into our room. They came in and lay down around us. Time skip. Isabella slept for the rest of the day and through the night. She never awoke, only whimpered every now and then. The kids stayed dutifully by her side, and Jasper tried to ease his mother's pain. Chapter 26. Sunday 5. Sunday. Charlie's pav. When Isabella finally awoke, she hugged the kids and apologized for breaking down. They all let go of their pent-up emotions and cried together. I did my best to make them all feel better. After a few hours, Isabella and I took a shower together, at which point she thanked me for bathing her the day before. We went downstairs and she ate the meal the kids had made for her. Then we all sat down to see what they had accomplished. I looked into all possible locations nearby, but when I started thinking what you and Dad would like, none seemed to be right. So I thought the house could be the perfect location. Is that okay? Rose asked, looking at Isabella and me. I think having the wedding here would be perfect. Thank you, Rose, Isabella answered as I saw some light enter her eyes. Once Rose told me that I thought maybe roses, lilies, and lighting around the house and the yard would work nicely for the decorations. Matted. Isabella nodded and motioned for them to continue. I thought maybe a quartet for the reception and maybe Edward could play the piano during the reception, Emmett said. I thought maybe a 3-tier cake, some finger foods and champagne for food. It's enough so the humans who attend don't go hungry, and we don't get busted for not eating. Jasper continued. I made sketches of possible gowns, dresses and tuxedos. All I need is your approval. Alice went on. For guests, I have us and some of our old friends. I guess it's up to the two of you on who is or isn't invited. Edward finished off. Isabella nodded. Thank you all so much. The decorations sound great. Emmett, I would love the quartet, and I know we would both be honored to have Edward play the piano. The food sounds wonderful, especially since it will be a small intimate affair. Alice, you can see my decision for my dress, and I would like you 3 girls in the lilac dress, the boys in the black tuxedos and Carlisle in the white. She looked up at me, and I could see life in her eyes once more. That sounds perfect, love. I answered her unasked question. She smiled a little brighter and then motioned for Edward to hand over the guest list. Guest list: Charlie and Sue, Lee and Jacob, Volturi brothers, Arrow, Caius, Marcus, Denali family, Eleazar, Carmen, Tanya, Kate, Irina, Laurent, Garrett, Peter and Charlotte. It was a relatively short list, but like Isabella said, it will be small and intimate. I guess all that is left is to find a judge and pick out invitations, I said, handing Edward the list again. Bella's Pav. I knew that no matter what I did, my father was going to die, so I would do my best to be happy. I know Carlisle will help me when the time comes and my father leaves this world. I know the kids will be devastated when they see me in such pain. But for the love that I have for them and Carlisle, I will be strong. I will not let this affect me in such a way that it hurts my children. I will protect them. Isabella, I believe Eliezer is a judge. Would you be okay with him officiating? Carlisle asked from beside me. I smiled up at my dear Carlisle. I believe that it will be perfect. He smiled back at me as he kissed me passionately. I heard the kids groan, and I pulled back from Carlisle. Is there a problem with your father and I showing each other our love? They looked at us before smiling and answering together. No, Mom. I giggled and kissed Carlisle again. Charlie's Pav. After the kids told us everything and I saw my Isabella smiling and happy again, I knew everything was going to be okay. I pulled her close as she kissed me again. I knew that she had found her inner strength that would allow her to get through this part of her life. After clearing up a few more details, the kids got to work on finalizing the plans, while Alice began making Bella's dress and the dresses for the girls. The tuxedos would come next. Edward, I heard my Isabella ask quietly from my side. Our son was in front of us in seconds. Yes, Mom. Can you play for me, please? She sounded a little sad again, but I knew it was her way of dealing with everything. Edward smiled and kissed Isabella's cheek before going to his piano and playing for her. I smiled as she snuggled into me and began to let her tears fall once more. The kids pretended not to notice as they continued to do what they were doing. Edward continued to play until long after she had fallen asleep. When he finally stopped, he looked over at me. Will she be okay? I nodded. It will take time, but she will be fine. Chapter 27. Monday, 5. Monday. Charlie's Pav. Isabella awoke with high spirits and a small smile. We had chosen the invitations over breakfast, and I drove her to work. She said she needed to keep her life as normal as she could. I went to work and was found with many more advances than normal. I stayed civil as long as I could. When it felt as though I was losing my temper and patience, I hid in my office. At the end of my shift, I went to pick up my Isabella. She came out of the office as I pulled into the parking lot. I opened her door and she slid in, giving me a kiss on the cheek as she went. I smiled and kissed her forehead. I drove to Charlie's where the kids were going to meet us. I opened my Isabella's door as the kids drove up. They all sprinted into the house, leaving my and their mother to walk at a slower, or human, pace. When we walked in, the kids were crowding Sue and Charlie. We chuckled as Sue hugged Jasper tightly. Once the hugging was done, Jasper returned to his mother's side, still slightly unnerved by his recent almost mishap. He tended to cling to Isabella since she was able to calm him so quickly. She was able to get through to him, like no had before. At school, he stuck to Alice because she calmed him, but never strayed out of Emmett's reach. We all knew Jasper had experience fighting, and Emmett was the strongest, so he would be able to hold him long enough for the others to get to them. Edward and Emmett were also very attached to their mother. They were always being attentive to her and her needs. The girls were also attached to their mother, but they tended to cling to me more now than they used to. I had talked to Isabella about it, and she said that they had always been Daddy's girls, but wanted to stay strong and indifferent before, because they didn't want to miss a companion when they went with their mates. Now they hugged me more, and kissed my cheek when leaving to school. However, none of our children ever left our side without receiving a kiss on the forehead from Isabella. They boys always leaned down for her. She found it so sweet. I was awakened from my thoughts when my Isabella pulled on my hand. She giggled at me and was joined by everyone else. Bella's Pav. Carlisle was in his own world, think about who knows what, when I finally yanked at his arm. He snapped out of it and looked for my face confused. I giggled and I felt Jasper begin laughing next to me. We stayed most of the afternoon with my dad, who was glad to see me so happy. We told him that we would drop the invitation off tomorrow. Edward was going to help Carlisle and me write the out when we got home. I gave Charlie a big hug before leaving. When we got home, I felt slightly depressed. I asked Edward to play for me again. He complied. Charlie's Pav. Edward played again until she was long asleep. He and I wrote out the invitations and sent them through the mail, except for Lee and Jacob's and Charlie and Sue's. I carried Isabella upstairs and changed her into some more comfortable clothes. Though we were waiting until we were married to make love, I had only seen her completely naked twice. The first time was when I showered her, and the second was when we showered together. But both times it had been about caring for her, nothing more. Now, as I dressed her, I couldn't help but admire her body. My Isabella was beautiful. Dad, Jasper chastised as he felt my lust. I chuckled quietly as I heard Edward mutter, "At least you don't have to see our mom in his mind." I swear I will never be able to get that out of my mind. The others laughed at their brothers. I smirked as Isabella curled into me. I held her close through the rest of the night. When she awoke in the morning, she smiled at me. "Thank you for taking care of me, Carlisle." "You're welcome, my love," I responded, kissing her passionately. Chapter 28. Tuesday, 5. Tuesday. Charlie's POV. When my Isabella awoke, I knew things would be a little more normal with every passing day. I was glad that we were getting married quicker than previously agreed, only because I could not wait for her to be my wife. But I hated the reason why. I did not want her to lose her father so soon. I kissed her forehead as I sat next to her in the kitchen. Once more the kids had breakfast ready. She ate happily as the kids wandered in, smiling at their wonderful mother. "Geez, Dad, I'm really glad you love Mom and all, but can you really stop with all the endearments and compliments in your thoughts? She can't hear them." "I can," Edward teased. Isabella turned to look at me and blushed like a wonderfully pink rose. My mind flashed to my fantasies that I hoped to make reality after we were wed. "Dad," Edward exclaimed, covering his ears and closing his eyes as though it would help. "Carlisle, stop torturing my son," Isabella chastised. "I'm not doing it on purpose, love, really," I responded, nuzzling into her neck. She giggled as the kids groaned. I laughed and pulled Isabella up from her chair. "We need to leave now, love." She nodded as the kids formed a line in front of her. She smiled as she kissed each one of the kids on the forehead. He boys as always bending down, so she wouldn't have to get on the tips of her toes or a chair. Edward laughed. "I'm so telling Mom." "Telling me what?" Isabella asked, looking at a grinning Edward. "Dad thinks you would have to get onto a chair in order to reach our foreheads," he said in the universal tattletale voice. Isabella laughed and looked over at me. "Bet you would prefer a table, huh?" Then she walked out, leaving the kids looking slightly disgusted and me with my mouth hanging open. Bella's POV. I smirked as I left Carlisle shocked in the kitchen with my kids, who I surprisingly did not feel bad for. I went to the car, and as I reached for the door, Carlisle was at my side. He opened the door for me, and after I slid in, he ran over to the other side and got in. As he drove me to work, I smiled at him. "You okay, honey?" "Isabella," he began, sounding strained. "That was a horribly mean thing to do to the love of your life. However, I will tell you right now that once we are married, you will pay up on top of a table." We reached the office then. He leaned over and kissed me passionately. I got out and walked into the office, stunned by what my fiancé had just said. Lee looked at me and smiled as I passed her desk. I heard my phone ring in my bag, so as I went to answer it, I found 2 invitations in the side pocket. "Hey Mom, just letting you know Dad and Edward sent out the invites last night. I put Lee's and Grandpa's in your purse so you could deliver them," Alice said over the phone. "Thank you, sweetie," I said as I heard Lee's voice over the intercom. "I need to go take care and make sure you and you siblings get to school and attend classes." "Okay, love you, Mom," she added quickly before hanging up. My patients for the day were all long-time patients who had more or less worked through their problems. Near the end of the day, Lee came in telling me she was going to take off. "Lee, wait, I have something for you," I said, digging through my purse. "What is it, Dr. Bella?" she asked, taking a seat. "Well, Carlisle and I are getting married. Originally, we were going to wait until the kids were out of school, but..." I took a deep breath. "My dad found out he has a non-operable brain tumor that is growing quickly. He has about 2 months to live." Carlisle suggested moving the wedding up so that Charlie could walk me down the aisle. "So this is the invitation for the wedding, which will take place in about 3 weeks at the Cullen home." I handed her the invitation as she stared at me wide-eyed. "That's why it's been so crazy?" "Oh my gosh, Bella, I am so sorry this is happening to you. But I promised to be at the wedding." She looked down at the invitation, looking slightly surprised to see Jake had been included. "I'm sure we'll gladly attend as well." "Thank you," I responded as we began to walk out together. Carlisle was waiting for me outside the office. He smiled at me and kissed me briefly before opening my car door. I smiled as he took my hand while driving to my dad's. Charlie's POV. I took my Izzy's hand as I drove to Charlie's. "Wait, did I just call Isabella Izzy?" I did. It suits her. But so does Bella." "Carlisle," Isabella said, breaking me from my thoughts. I turned to look at her. "What is you thinking so hard?" "Oh, I was thinking about taking your hand, but instead of thinking of you as Isabella or Bella, I thought of you as Izzy." "Is it okay if I call you Izzy?" I asked nervously. She blushed. "I like that you have given me my own nickname, though I think I may miss you calling me Isabella." "I will still call you Isabella, but sometimes I can call you Izzy," I stated, feeling hopeful. She nodded. "I would like that. But only you can call me Izzy, okay?" I smiled. "Of course, my love, my Izzy." She blushed red. I chuckled happily. My Izzy. I brought her hand up to my lips and kissed her ring finger. She giggled and leaned into my arm. We pulled into Charlie's driveway, and I had to pull away to open her door. She wrapped her arms around my waist as I wrapped mine around her, and we walked up to the door. I kissed her forehead before opening the door and letting us in. Charlie, Sue, I called out. They called out that they were in the kitchen. We talked for most of the afternoon, and we gave them the invitation. Charlie thanked me for agreeing to move up the wedding. I told him there was no need for thanks. We went home when it began to get dark. The kids were waiting with smiling faces. They hugged us, and then we all went inside and watched a move. Afterwards, Edward went to the piano and began to play for him Mother, while she smiled and began to drift off into dreamland. The kids smiled as she fell asleep quickly and with no tears for the first time this week. The wedding was 3 weeks and 4 days away. Chapter 29. Wednesday, 5. Wednesday. Charlie's Pav. My Izzy awoke early today. She was feeling slightly unwell. After breakfast she went to the restroom, and after she had been in the bathroom for a minute or two, I smelled blood. But it was slightly off. Almost dead. Oh, it was her time of month, that is why she was feeling unwell. I was outside her door in seconds. Do you need anything, my love? No, Carlisle, I have what I need, thank you, she said through the door. Are you sure? Do you need medication? A warm tea? I was stuttering like crazy, and at the same time I was worried she was in pain. Kids, get your father and calm him down, I will be done in a minute, she said from behind the door. All 6 kids were suddenly around me, forcing me down the hallway away from my Izzy. No. I growled at them before running through them to stand by the door once more. I snarled at them as they moved to come closer. Carlisle, my Izzy exclaimed as she opened the bathroom door. I looked at her and immediately let my eyes wander her entire body, making sure no harm had come to her. Mom, Edward and Jasper called out together. She turned to look at them. What is wrong with him? He is gaining strength and speed, Emmett responded. Also his instincts are telling him to protect you, and the fear of bloodlust is making him overprotective. Jasper added in. Carlisle, I need to calm down, sweetie. I am okay and the kids were only doing as I asked, she said to me as I whimpered slightly as I turned to face our children. I am so sorry, I don't know what came over me, I had to be near my Izzy. I am so sorry. Please tell me I did not harm any of you. I fell to my knees in front of them, afraid at my own actions. They all ran over to me as Bella pulled me into her warm embrace. You didn't hurt us, Dad, Alice began. You didn't even scare us, Esme continued. Yeah, we were just shocked that you had it in you, old man, Rose giggled. Everyone joined in and I could not help but smile. I will be more careful, my Izzy. I promise, kids, to try and be a better father. I stood as my Izzy pulled us all in for a group hug. She was right, I had a dormant power. Bella's Pav. Both Carlisle and I were late for work today, but it truly does not matter. I already put in my notice. Another therapist would be taking my position after the end of the school year. We were going to have a short 2-day honeymoon at an undisclosed to me location after the wedding. Then when the kids were out of school, we are going to go to the family vacation. We are all well aware that by that time my father will be gone, and I hope I will be okay. I worked throughout the day and began to look for a replacement psychologist. I would remain a silent owner, but I would most likely not come back here for quite some time. Also, by the time I can control my bloodlust, I will need to get a new diploma. Maybe go to school with the kids. That may be fun, maybe Carlisle could join us. I will have to talk to him about it. We would all have to pose as college students. Or maybe Carlisle and I can be their older siblings, and they can be in high school. That would work. I smiled as I locked up for the day, but as I turned to the parking lot I found it empty. Odd. I called Carlisle's cell phone, but he didn't answer. This wasn't like him, he was always here. I decided to call the kids. Hey Mom, Jasper answered. Jasper, I need you boys to go and find Carlisle. He isn't answering his phone, and isn't here to pick me up. Have the girls to come pick me up before we join you, I said, slightly hysterical. The girls are on their way, the guys and I are each taking different cars just in case. Don't worry Mom, we'll find out what's going on, Jasper responded. Thank you, sweetie, I responded, feeling slightly relieved. Do you want me to stay on the line with you until the girls get there? He asked, concerned for me. No, I'll call them. Be safe, I told him before hanging up and dialing Esme's number. Mom, we are on our way. Rose is driving as fast as she can, Esme responded. Okay, thank you. I just wanted someone to talk to while waiting, I responded honestly. Don't worry Mom, we'll be there in 5 minutes tops, I heard Rose say in the background. Alice, can you see your father? I asked, afraid of the answer. I'm trying Mom, but it is all blurry. She sounded slightly hysterical. but I know he is alive, that is what matters. They pulled into the parking lot, and I slid into the front passenger's seat. I called Edward this time. Hey Mom, we picked up a trail headed toward the meadow. We are following on foot. We can smell 3 others, but they smell disgusting. I would say head home, and we'll let you know what goes down. But I know better. Have the girls drive to the end of the road before running with you. We will approach if necessary, but wait otherwise. Thank you, Edward. Alice says all of you have gotten blurry. We are flying blind, my sons. I responded before the line went dead. I sighed. We were about 10 minutes away. It seemed as though my life flashed before my eyes as Rose carried me on her back. We were near the meadow, a few yards now. When we reached the edge, Esme and Alice flanked Rose as we entered. The boys came over to us. Emmett helped me down. Across the field stood 3 naked men. They were tall and muscled like animals. They seemed shocked at our presence. Carlisle was on the ground at their feet. I whimpered and went to step forward when Emmett, Jasper, Edward, Rose, Esme, and Alice placed a hand on me. I looked at them with tears in my eyes. Is he okay? Edward spoke. He will be. Not the answer I wanted, but I knew it is what I needed. I turned to look at the naked men. The kids spread out in a line, slightly behind me, but ready to defend. My role as alpha female in the vampire world had to be acknowledged. Who are you? I asked firmly. We are protectors, the tallest of the 3 responded, probably the leader. Why have you taken and hurt my mate? I asked, letting my anger seep into my words. He was about to feed of an innocent human, the same man responded. No, I said firmly. Carlisle saves lives. He does not take them. He was at a hospital. The second tallest answered, probably second in command. He is a doctor. Emmett snarled, the other kids growling in agreement. Carlisle stirred. I whimpered again, wanting to step forward. He needs me, please. Let me go to him, I said. Mom, the kids exclaimed. You can't go near them. Dad would kill us for letting them near you. You know we are already going to get in trouble for bringing you. You can't leave us too. They were yelling out. Stop. I called out to them. Before turning back to the 3 men, place him in the center of the meadow. Then got back to the edge. I will then go to the center as well. They hesitated, but after silently communicating they did as I asked. I went to him quickly. Carlisle, oh Carlisle, please open your eyes, my love, I said as I cradled his head in my lap. I noticed his arms and legs were twitching. They had tried to pull him apart. I held him closer. Izzy, he mumbled, opening his eyes only slightly. Run. I shook my head. I will not leave you. You can't leave me too, Carlisle. You can't leave our children. If you did, I would leave too. They are already losing a grandfather. We can't take more from them. The men cleared their throats. The leader spoke again. How can they be your children? I love them. We love them, I replied, feeling an implied duh had been added. What is your relationship to their coven leader? He continued. We aren't a coven, we are a family. And if you must know, he is my fiancé. We are getting married in 3 weeks. I responded. He and his companions looked stunned. They went to take a step towards me when I was surrounded by the kids. Do not come near our mother, they all roared. They took a step back as Jasper kneeled down next to me. He checked his father over, before setting his body parts in their proper place. The venom began to heal him. He whimpered. Alice, go find a deer or 2 for your dad. I told them as the kids moved over to be next to me and their father. The boys not getting up from their hunting crouch. Rose helped Jasper set Carlisle's bones before they both stood and took the same poses as their brothers. Esme and Alice returned quickly. They set the prey right next to me. I lifted the deer's neck to his lips, but he would not drink. I motioned for Jasper to hand me the knife he always carried. I cut a slit in the animal's neck, and then placed Carlisle's mouth there. He drank greedily. He did not need help beginning to feed from the second animal. The 3 men just looked on, looking quite confused. I looked over at Edward, silently asking him to tell me what they were thinking. They find it odd you are with us. They have a hatred towards our kind and find it sick you would let a vampire drink while they rest in your lap. They find it gross that you love us and hate me for knowing their minds. They are a form of shifters. They turn into giant wolves. They want to eliminate us. I held Carlisle closer. Hand me your phone, sweetheart, I said, turning toward Emmett. He handed me his phone without looking away from the intruders. What are your names? I asked them. I am Sam, the alpha. My beta is Paul. And the third in command and last to join our pack is Jared, the tallest, Sam said. I am Isabella, but everyone calls me Bella. This is my Matt, Carlisle. Our children, Edward, Esme, Jasper, Alice, Emmett, and Rosalie, I said as I dialed. Excuse me a moment. Emmett, have you heard from Bella? Charlie's voice rang through the phone. Dad, it's me. Some things came up and I promised to explain later, but we won't be able to make it today. Tears began to run down my face. I'm sorry, Daddy. I promised to make up the time with you before I could not finish. Bella, it's okay, baby girl. Tell the kids I love them. Say hit to Carlisle for me too. Call me if you need anything, he responded, before hanging up. The kids looked heartbroken. Suddenly I was wrapped in strong white arms. I looked to see my Carlisle holding me to him as I cried for the lost time with my father. What gives you the right to try and kill me when you don't know me? He spoke harshly, his instincts taking over. We are protectors, Sam yelled. You are idiots who don't see what is going on around them. Because of you my Isabella has lost time with her father. You have no idea what you have done. He roared as the three men took a frightened step back. The children surrounded us and growled. Carlisle, I said through my tears. His head snapped down to look at me, such tenderness in his eyes. Yes, Izzy. Can we go home? They didn't know what they were doing. Please, Carlisle. I want to go home. I can't do this anymore, Carlisle. I was so afraid. I clung to him tightly. He growled lightly. If you wish to understand our way of life, I suggest you make an appointment. Edward, get my wallet and give them a card. However, if the three of you ever come near my maid again or take up her time with her father, I will kill you. At that moment, Carlisle sounded as what he truly was, a vampire. He picked me up and I wrapped my legs around his waist. The kids back away with him setting the pace. As soon as we were out of the clearing, he instructed Rose to go and get her car, and told Alice, and Edward to go and get the boys' cars. His could wait, and Emmett and Jasper to flank them on our way home. Charlie's Pav. My Isabella was crying because these bastards had taken her time from her father, because they had hurt me, and made her afraid for my safety. I so wished to kill them, but she looked so broken. I carried her home while instructing the children on what to do. When Edward returned, he began to play the piano in an attempt to calm his mother. The rest of the children gathered around us as I held her in my lap. I slowly stroked her hair and rubbed her back while whispering sweet nothings to her. After a few hours, she fell asleep. I continued to hold her to me, keeping her safe. Once she was asleep, I told the kids what had occurred. Flashback. I was late getting to the hospital. I felt horrible for how I had acted earlier. Once my shift was over, I headed to the car only to see an ambulance heading in. I should stay and help, but my Isabella needs her time with her father. I turned towards my car when the wind changed directions. An awful smell hit my nose. I turned to see 3 pairs of eyes glaring at me through the forest trees. I moved towards them, but then I realized they were 3 giant wolves. Why did they not flee from me? Suddenly they were attacking. I fled knowing I stood no chance against 3 enemies on my own. Soon I felt them catch me and begin to try to pull me apart. Then I heard the boys, they were here to help. Chapter 30. Thursday. 5. Thursday. Charlie's Pav. I called into the hospital and told them I needed personal days today and tomorrow, and that I would be back in on Monday. They said it would be fine. I waited to wake my Izzy until the last possible moment. When I did, she clung to me. I held her close. I helped her change for work and carried her downstairs. The kids hugged us as we sat down in the kitchen. The girls already had Isabella's food waiting for her, but she would not remove her hands from my neck. I did not mind, so I fed her the scrambled eggs, bacon, and pancakes that had been made for her. Carlisle, she whimpered. Yes, my Izzy? I asked, concerned. The kids were all looking towards us, and I could feel their worry. I was so scared, Carlisle. I am so afraid of what will happen if I let you go, she said as her eyes filled with tears. I know, my love. That is why today will be take your fiancé to work day. I will go with you today. I will only leave your side when a patient is with you, and even then I will be in your waiting room. I responded, rubbing her back. She nodded. What if they go after the kids? I chuckled. My love, the only reason they got the upper hand on me was because they ambushed me. If they go up against our 6 vampire children, they will find their deaths imminent. She nodded. The kids came up to us one by one to receive their goodbye kiss. After they left, I made sure she was truly okay before we walked to the car, and I drove to her office. Bella's Pav. I knew I was being slightly ridiculous, but I could not stand the thought of being away from Carlisle. I knew I was safe with him, and he had a point. The kids could overpower the 3 visitors easily. Through the day I talked to my patients, and when I was free, Carlisle held me tightly. I was able to leave early since I had no afternoon appointments. This was wonderful because I got to make up 3 of the 6 lost hours with my father. The kids arrived at 4, having already hunted for the day. We stayed until 9 before heading home. Charlie asked what had happened yesterday, but we told him he had nothing to worry about. When we got home, the kids and Carlisle froze. I clung to Carlisle immediately. Are they still here? Carlisle growled. I can hear their thoughts. They are waiting in the woods. Edward responded. What do they want? Carlisle snarled now, as he stepped in front of me protectively. They just want to talk. They want to understand us and know why you drank the animals we brought you instead of drinking Mom. Edward snarled the last part, clearly offended. The others also growled. You must be in human form, and you must be respectful, Carlisle stated. We will be, Sam responded, coming out of the trees. Alice, go and get them some pants, please, Carlisle asked. She was gone and back in seconds. She gave Jasper the 3 pairs of pants before she, Rose and Esme came over to me. Love, will you join the girls inside? I promise we won't be long. We are just going to establish a few rules before we all head inside and talk, Carlisle said to me. I nodded and kissed him sweetly before heading inside with the girls. Charlie's pav. The girls went into the house with my Izzy. I motioned for Jasper to give the visitors the pants. From now on, if you are in front of my daughters or wife-to-be, you are to wear pants. You do not talk to them without asking my permission first. You keep your hands to yourself as well as your eyes. Do not fantasize about them. My son will let me know. You do not show up on weekends or before 9 p.m. on weekdays. Those days and times are for visiting with my love's parents and family time. Do you all understand these rules? I asked as my boys surrounded them. They all nodded. I sighed, follow me, and please don't try anything, because it will not end well for you. I must also warn you, if you touch my love, I will rip your hands off without a second thought. They followed me, and as the boys took up the rear, I went straight to my Izzy as they boys went straight to their mates. Chairs had been set in front of the love seat where my Izzy was. I motioned for the 3 visitors to sit there. Isabella clung to me but held little emotion in her face. What do you wish to know? I asked when we were all settled. Sam spoke first. We know you are vampires, but your eyes are different. Why? Our eyes are different because we only drink from animals, never from humans. They kids call it being vegetarian vampires. I responded. That is why you don't kill her? Paul asked, though it sounded more like a statement. I growled. I don't kill humans. I would never hurt my Izzy. She is everything to me. She gave me back my family and completed it. She is the mother of our children. She is more than any human. The visitors looked shocked by my intensity. Edward snarled loudly as he pounced in front of his mother. The kids immediately surrounded us, all ready to attack if necessary. They believe you are using her as pet. They find your protectiveness to be that of an owner, not as a lover. Edward snarled louder. I growled. I crouched ready to pounce, but a warm soft had stopped me. I turned to see my Isabella holding onto my shoulder, silently pleading me to calm. Carlisle, you need to stop, she said quietly. Please, Carlisle, for me. I sighed. Children, I believe it would make your mother happy if we listened to her. They all sighed or groaned as they relaxed but stayed around us. You find his protection possessive. Well, it should be. I am his. He is mine. We love each other, and he has given me children. He protects me because I am only human. He is a powerful vampire, as are our children. Family protects itself. Family protects the weaker members, always. Your mistake is that you can't see past the vampires. All you see is bloodthirsty monsters. Yet I see a man who put his children before himself. I see children who wanted love, who wanted and needed a mother. I see a family of loving, caring people, she said to the visitors. Jared, the 3rd visitor, looked toward me in a silent question. I nodded. We are sorry to be so judgmental, but our families were killed by vampires. A lot of them. They were bloodthirsty and extremely strong. They came in the dead of night. We survived because we phased and we ran for our lives. Many vampires, you say? Jasper asked. Maybe, Edward mumbled. How did they attack? Jasper asked the visitors. They were wild with thirst, killing everyone in their path, lunging at everyone. Sam responded. Days, maybe months before were their disappearances in the surrounding area? Jasper continued. Yes, Paul responded. Carlisle, Isabella exclaimed. I looked down at her, afraid she had been somehow hurt. What is it, my Isabella? It was an army, a newborn army, she said, her eyes wide, voice shaking and tears in her eyes. I pounced over her as I looked around frantically. The boys had their mates under them in a millisecond as well. Newborn armies were against the law and extremely dangerous. When did this happen? I half snarled toward the guests who looked thoroughly confused. About 3 months ago, Sam responded. Were you followed by anyone? I snarled again. No, Jared responded. Are you sure? I asked forcefully. Yes, we are, Paul said. I nodded and buried my nose in Izzy's hair. We are safe. The boys sighed as they got up and lifted their mates from the floor. I made sure Isabella was okay before lifting her into my arms. Newborn armies are against the law, I said out loud. They are dangerous and they must be reported. Where are you from? We are from North Canada. Sam responded shocked. I'll call Arrow and see if receive the wedding invitation and ask him to look into this. My Isabella said. I nodded and dialed the phone number for her. Hello, Arrow? Yes. Isabella. Yes, Arrow, how are you? I am overjoyed, my dear. I am glad you have found love in one of our kind. This way you will never have to leave them. Though I must ask, why wed so soon? Charlie is dying, Arrow, and I need my father on my wedding day. Dear child, why not change him? You know he has never wanted this life. I guess you are correct. Please expect me and my brothers at the wedding. Good. I am also calling to report a newborn army. What? We have some visitors whose tribe was killed by an army in North Canada. We will deal with this before your wedding, my dear. Do not be afraid. The entire guard will be in North Canada by dawn. Thank you, Arrow, for everything. It is nothing, dear. Please tell the Cullens that I am happy their coven or family as they prefer is complete. I will, thank you, Isabella said. He hung up. The newborn vampires will be taken care of by tomorrow night, Jasper said. May I ask who you called? Sam asked. She called Arrow Volturi, one of the 3 kings of the vampire world. They keep order with their guard. I responded. The 3 visitors nodded. We would like to return tomorrow and talk some more. I nodded. At the same time is fine. They got up and left. I carried my Izzy to bed and let her sleep through the night. Friday. Charlie's POV. The wolves came by in the morning. They apologized for having intruded and told me they had to be on their way. They were headed south to learn of their legends. We were all silently glad that they were leaving. I woke up my Izzy with soft kisses down her neck and across her jaw. She giggled and smiled up at me. I gave her the news of our departed guests, and she breathed a sigh of relief. She got ready for work as I took a shower, and then we both went downstairs. Bella's POV. I ate my breakfast happily. Knowing that our guests were gone made me feel at ease and safe once more. I'm glad that my Carlisle is safe. After I ate, Carlisle drove me to work. I was going to have the kids pick me up during their lunchtime because I only have morning appointments. I love being able to go home early. Thankfully, I found a replacement that will be able to come in by next week, so that she can see how I work and what the patients will need. We will be getting married in 3 weeks. Charlie's POV. Now that the visitors were gone, I could not help but think back to my Isabella's conversation with the Volturi. They held so much respect for her. Nothing makes me happier than knowing that they would not hurt her for being with me with us. I went to work lamenting the fact that I would be unable to pick up my girl from work. She only has morning appointments today, so the kids were picking her up during their lunch hour and dropping her off at the Chief's. I would meet her there later. They would head back to school then go hunting. I was going to hunt locally, but I was going to see if Isabella would go and watch me. I hoped seeing it would help her when she was changed. Not to mention I wanted her involved in every aspect of my life. Hopefully she would not become afraid. Bella's POV. The kids dropped me off at my dad's house. Sue was waiting for me. We talked about what she would do after my dad left us. She said she would probably live her life in Forks. I would hate to leave her. Charlie's POV. I missed my Izzy throughout the day. When I got home, I went to hunt before heading to Charlie's. My love was waiting for me there, along with the kids. They were fighting about wrestling when I arrived. I said, I don't want you kids wrestling, Bella was saying. I sighed as I came up behind her. The kids were about to argue with her, but when they saw me they looked down. She turned to look at me and opened her arms asking for a hug. What did I tell you kids about upsetting your mother? I asked sternly. Not to, they chorused. I nodded. Then please tell me what you were just doing. They didn't answer. When your mother or I say something we should not have to repeat ourselves. You all have photographic memories. They nodded. What is their punishment, love? I asked my Izzy holding her slightly tighter. She sighed. I don't know, Carlisle. She sounded defeated. The kids were immediately concerned. Izzy, I asked gently, trying to get her to look at me. She shook her head. Can we go home? I nodded. We all said goodbye to Charlie and Sue. They both gave me questioning glances. I nodded in reassurance. When we got home, I instructed the kids to go hunting. They took a hint. What is it, my love? I asked as I nuzzled her neck. She was quiet for a few minutes. How can I leave Sue to deal with everything alone? She cried suddenly. I held her through the night as she cried. Thankfully tomorrow is Saturday, and neither of us works, and the kids don't go to school. Saturday 5. Saturday. Charlie's POV. When my Izzy woke up she snuggled into me. What is going through your mind, beautiful? Asked gently. What if I'm not a good mom? What if something happens to Sue? How will I ever forgive myself? What will happen, Carlisle? She asked with tears already pouring out of her eyes. I held her to me and whimpered, my beautiful human, you will only be a bad mother if we are bad parents. Anything to do with our children is respected by the other or decided together. We will be parents together. Do not worry for Sue, she will die when her time comes. We will have moved on by then, but be assured that we will keep in touch with her. She nodded and buried her face in my chest. Soon I felt her hands begin to roam and draw random shapes on me. I chuckled lightly as she tickled my side. She giggled at me and kissed my jaw. Thank you, Carlisle. You're welcome, Izzy, I said as I kissed her forehead. Now we need a punishment for the kids. She sighed. I believe you should decide. I groaned. Really? She giggled lightly. Yes, I will approve of your decision. I thought for a moment. Kids, I called out at normal volume, and they all came up to our room. They lined up at the end of the bed. I sat up with my back against the headboard and pulled Isabella into my chest. You will all not be allowed to play baseball next week as we had planned. You will all stay indoors outside of your bedrooms, I said sternly as their faces fell. Your time will be spent with the family. This house will be abstinent until after the wedding, and unless you all listen to us, that will be extended to 3 months after the wedding. Immediately they all looked to Bella. Mom? She shook her head. I think he was lenient. You have all had a certain disregard for rules these past few days. They looked pissed off at us but left without another word. The joys of parenthood. I mumbled in my Izzy's ear. She giggled and snuggled into me. We rested most of the day. Near noon we went downstairs and got Bella some breakfast. I needed to hunt and I wanted to show Bella how I hunt, but I am unsure as to when. I know that hunting brings other needs into perspective. I sighed and cleaned the kitchen at vampire speed. Bella's pav. Carlisle seemed like he was overthinking something, but I didn't know what to do. Carlisle? I asked, trying to get him away from his thoughts. He turned to look at me and sighed. I want to take you with me today when I hunt, but I am not sure if it is a food idea. I know you will be safe, but hunting is very primal, and it awakens a vampire's instincts. Those instincts include physical desires. I nodded. You're afraid things will get out of hand. He nodded. Would it be okay if the others came along to make sure everything goes okay? That is, if you want to go. I nodded. I would love to see you hunt. We went out with the entire family. They would stay with their mother while I hunted to ensure that everything went well. As I let myself go into my hunting crouch, I smelled Isabella, but I did not even register thirst for her. I did, however, let my mouth fill with venom as I smelled a bear. I wrestled him until I was back in my Izzy's sight. I drank him quickly. I heard her heart speed up, and her breathing became raged. Was she afraid? I finished quickly and went towards her. The kids were looking worried about her reaction as well. I whimpered as I got closer. Her eyes locked with mine, but instead of seeing fear, I saw something else. Something that we both have been trying to control: desire. I was in front of her within the second. I purred as I hugged her close. I am glad that I have not frightened you, my beautiful Izzy. She smiled into my chest and nodded. The kids went off to hunt, Emmett grumbling about me getting lucky with the bear. I kissed my Izzy, then letting her feel my arousal as I pressed her to me. She moaned as she melted into the kiss. We kissed until the kids returned, clearing their throats in order to get our attention. We are glad that you guys were able to experience this and all, but really, if you want to wait until you're married, you should stop, Alice murmured as she shuddered. I chuckled and we broke apart. I carried her back to the house, where we all got ready to have a night in. The kids picked out some movies and made their mother something to snack on. We spent time together, and after watching about 10 movies, Izzy finally decided she was calling it a night. She slept soundly and having calmed from the stress of the week. Soon we would be married, and soon I would never have to let her go.